Chu Jianying's tone was like a harsh elder criticizing her own child. Although it was harsh, she wasn't treating Mo Nian as an outsider. Mo Nian innocently said, "I don't embarrass my ancestors at all. If anything, they would be proud of me for unearthing the remnants of our lost history. I'm bringing back the remnants of the immortals for the martial heaven continent's development. All right, you can stop." As expected, birds of a feather flocked together. "No wonder you're so close to that fellow Long Chen. You shouldn't learn from him," said Chu Jianying, who couldn't be bothered to continue listening to Mo Nian's quibbling. Mo Nian immediately said, "Senior, you really understand me. In truth, I was once an incomparably pure and motivated youth. I had such dreams, but then I encountered Long Chen. I can't say any more, I'm going to cry." Mo Nian's aggrieved expression immediately made Long Chen rage. "You were the bad sort from the start, so what does it have to do with me? Who do you think you're trying to blame?" The disciples laughed at their interaction, and even some of the old Netherpassage experts cracked a smile. To them, the children these days were quite lively. Even though they had just escaped death, they were relaxed. What was an expert? This was an expert. True experts didn't always need to maintain a high and mighty air. An expert who could laugh and curse was a real expert. Both Long Chen and Mo Nian didn't act like they were supreme normally, but in battle, they became undefeatable gods. An expert who didn't look down on the weak or fear the strong was more worthy of their admiration. Even Chu Jianying couldn't help smiling. These two really were a perfect pair. "All right, tell us what happened inside. The few of you should come with me to discuss it," said Chu Jianying. She was indicating that Long Chen, Mo Nian, Yi Lingshan, Yi Zhiqiu, as well as the people on the level of the Dragonblood Legion's captains should go somewhere to talk. That would be more dignified and easier. Although they were just soul transformation disciples, they had terrifying potential. It was almost set in stone that they would be able to advance to the Netherpassage realm. That was why she viewed them as the future backbones of the righteous path. "Thank you, but I won't be going. As a disciple of the Divine Ice Palace, some things aren't convenient for me to participate in," said Yi Zhiqiu. The Divine Ice Palace was also a sect situated outside the struggle of the righteous and corrupt paths. The reason why she was standing beside Long Chen was due to personal reasons, but if she were to participate in a gathering of the righteous path, it would be equivalent to pulling in the Divine Ice Palace. So she couldn't attend this meeting. "I've never attended any such meetings, so if you have any instructions, just tell Miss Lingshan and she can tell me. Even if your orders are to walk through fire, I won't hesitate," said Mo Nian solemnly. Long Chen got goosebumps just by listening. Even when picking up girls, there was no need to be so shameless. Long Chen was amazed by how thick his skin was. Alliance head, those of us who belong to the Dragonblood Legion will just listen to Long Chen. He can go talk it out with you, but we don't need to go. We sisters haven't seen Zhiqiu in many years, so it just so happens that we have much to catch up on. We don't want to bring you trouble, said Chu Yao. As a result, everyone from the Dragonblood Legion retreated. Just Long Chen alone was enough. Long Chen stealthily cast a glance at Yi Lingshan. She immediately understood and said, "Alliance head, there were many outstanding experts appeared amongst our Martial Heaven Alliance this time. I feel like they are qualified to join in on this discussion." In front of everyone, Yi Lingshan couldn't call Chu Jianying master. She had to call her alliance head to indicate her impartiality. There was a deeper meaning in the Dragonblood Legion leaving. It was to give Yi Lingshan a greater chance for promotion. After all, the Martial Heaven Alliance was the Martial Heaven Alliance, while the Dragonblood Legion was the Dragonblood Legion. Yi Lingshan had to raise her own confidants. Once those confidants grew up and became masters of their own sects, her position in the Martial Heaven Alliance would be solidified. Before this, Yi Lingshan had had this thought but hadn't dared to bring it up because although there were many outstanding figures amongst the Martial Heaven Alliance, they paled a bit in comparison to the monsters of the Dragonblood Legion. If she invited them to enter alongside those monsters, they would feel inferior. With the Dragonblood Legion retreating, they had freed up space for these outstanding figures. The Dragonblood Legion would not touch the Martial Heaven Alliance's posts and positions. In truth, this was a very important aspect. If the Dragonblood Legion merged into the Martial Heaven Alliance, it wouldn't be long before the Martial Heaven Alliance became a branch of the Dragonblood Legion. That was extremely bad for the Martial Heaven Alliance's stability. Furthermore, their enemies would use that chance to criticize them, saying that Chen had been planning this from the start, to take over the Martial Heaven Alliance. After all, an alliance was just an alliance. It was not a single large sect. There were many complicated relations that Chen did not want to participate in. Chu Jianying nodded, allowing Yi Lingshan to pick out a total of 36 powerful experts to enter the meeting. Li Tianxian also entered, but the old patriarch left with the Xiantian Tower. The news that the Xiantian Tower had left the Xiantian Dao sect was rapidly spreading, so to be safe, the Xiantian Tower should return. Mo Nian and the other disciples were left to chat in the plaza. It was very lively. Having undergone a great battle together, they all felt closer to each other than before. Those disciples that had comprehended the Tao of life and death in particular were extremely grateful to the Dragonblood Legion. They had sacrificed much for them. Countless disciples hadn't been qualified to enter the Yin-Yang world. Chu Jianying had ordered that any disciples below rank 8 Celestial would be immediately kicked out of the Martial Heaven Alliance if they dared to enter the Yin-Yang world. If they had entered, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. Many disciples had been a bit angry with that order. It was wasting a chance for them to adventure and get stronger. Although they didn't say it out loud, they thought about it. However, now they saw that only over 100,000 disciples had returned. Hearing about their miserable plight inside, they knew that the orders were justified. Let alone rank 8 and rank 9 Celestials, even Empyreans had been slaughtered. These rank 7 and below Celestials weren't even cannon fodder. Chen and the others entered the Martial Heaven Palace, but he didn't see the 4 Grand Elders. It seemed they had left Chu Jianying in charge of this. The 4 Grand Elders don't have much longevity left. It's not good for them to be walking about. They're sitting in quiet meditation, said Chu Jianying, seeming to read Chen's mind. Alliance head, I've found the life-extending fruit. Chen took out dozens of fist-sized, fragrant fruit. You really found it? Chu Jianying exclaimed with delight. I didn't have to meticulously look for it. I just found it in a mysterious medicinal mountain field. When the formations broke, I just grabbed everything I could, and I found the life-extending fruit amongst them, said Chen. Back when he had released the Yin-Yang immortal grass and Yi Lingshan had broken the seal on the Eastern Wasteland Bell's fragment, they had ended up drawing out some terrifying ox-head devils. Those devils had broken the formation of the medicinal field, and Chen had plundered them. He had grabbed anything he could get his hands on, and coincidentally, he had found the life-extending fruit. That's excellent. With the life-extending fruit, the 4 Grand Elders will get a bit more longevity and be able to fight all out. That's huge for the Martial Heaven Alliance, said Chu Jianying. Do you have any more? No, this is all I have. Chen shook his head. However, he sent a secret transmission to Chu Jianying. I have more. It should be more than enough to use. These people are all trusted, so is there a need to be so careful? Demanded Chu Jianying. She also said it through a spiritual transmission. If you want to trust them, that's up to you. I only trust you and Yi Lingshan, responded Chen. I'm telling you, don't you dare try to seduce my apprentice, warned Chu Jianying. What? Chen almost coughed up blood. Did they have to treat him like a wolf to be guarded against? To Yi Lingshan, Chu Jianying said, Lingshan, explain the general situation. Yi Lingshan nodded and narrated what had happened. She included the details of the battle, as well as the fact that Pill Valley, the ancient races, the corrupt path, the ancient family alliance, the Xian beasts, Heavenly Fate Island, and the Bloodkill Hall were secretly colluding. They had made a giant trap to annihilate the Martial Heaven Alliance and the Dragonblood Legion. Upon hearing of this trap, despite being prepared, Chu Jianying was infuriated and shocked. This entire expedition to the Yin-Yang world had been a trap. At the same time, she became grave. Most likely, many large and powerful sects that were originally part of the Martial Heaven Alliance were about to become hostile. They would be even more difficult to handle in the future. However, when she heard that Yi Lingshan had slain one of the corrupt path's 3 kings, Ming Jie, Chu Jianying was filled with pride but also distress. At such a young age, Yi Lingshan had picked up such a heavy burden. As her master, she felt doing such a thing was unbearable, yet there was also no other choice. Chu Jianying, get out here. Today, if you don't give me an explanation, the Martial Heaven Alliance will disappear forever from the Martial Heaven continent. Chu Jianying was about to ask more questions when a furious shout resounded through the air like thunder, shaking everyone's ears. Chu Jianying walked out of the Martial Heaven Palace and saw that the sky was covered in experts that had surrounded the Martial Heaven Alliance's headquarters. They were actually all Netherpassage experts. The pressure of over 1,000 of them crashed down on the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples like a mountain. The disciples felt like their skeletons were going to shatter, and they helplessly knelt on the ground. Although they knew this was a humiliation, they did not have the power to resist. They wanted to stand, but in front of absolute power, bravery alone was not enough. Only the Dragonblood Legion and some powerful Empyreans were barely able to keep standing. However, even they were shuddering. 1,000 Netherpassage experts had descended upon Clearwind City. They didn't bother concealing their killing intent, and everyone in Clearwind City was enveloped in that pressure. This kind of army, an army of over 1,000 Netherpassage experts, was enough to run rampant over the entire Martial Heaven continent. This was an absolute force. These people belonged to the various large powers. There were some from the Righteous Path, the Corrupt Path, Pill Valley, the Ancient Family Alliance, the Ancient Races, and the Shen Beasts. Long Chen also saw 2 familiar faces. One was Pill Valley's master, Yu Xiaoyun, the leader of this group. That shout just now was from him. Beside Yu Xiaoyun was Di Long. He was also coldly staring at Long Chen. His gaze was so sharp that it felt like it could pierce Long Chen. Not far from Di Long was a man in black robes. His eyes were sunken, and they were deep like a falcon's eyes. This elder had blood chi swirling around him, looking like he had just come out of a blood bath. There were intense spatial fluctuations around him. Amongst those fluctuations, it was vaguely possible to see countless resentful spirits struggling and howling. That sight was extremely shocking. This elder was the Corrupt Path's leader, Xie Luo's ancestor, Xie Wenin. He was the figure that inspired the most fear and trepidation in the Righteous Path. Xie Wenin was a terrifying figure, but only a few people had ever seen him. It was surprising that he would actually appear here. There was another elder not far from him. He was large like an iron tower. He had a falcon's eyes and a falcon's nose, and golden light glowed within his eyes like 2 suns. When they opened, it was like golden rays of light were shining. He was the leader of the Shen Beasts. His name was Peng Wanli, and it was said that he was a descendant of the Kuanping race. The Kuanping was the earliest ancestor of the Peng race. First came the Kuan and then came the Peng. The Kuan transformed into the Peng, and thus it was called the Kuanping. It possessed the most primordial bloodline. The Silver Wing Azure Peng, the Golden Wing Great Peng, they were all inferior branches. The Kuanping was the strongest existence of the Peng race. Long Chen had once slain a genius of the Peng race, Peng Wansheng. He was a genius descendant of the Golden Wing Great Peng race. However, his blood was a mix of the Golden Wing Great Peng race and the human race, so he could not be called a true member of the Golden Wing Great Peng race. There weren't too many fluctuations around Peng Wanli. However, the power of his blood chi caused the space around him to rumble, as if he was a volcano that could explode at any moment. To the other side was a dark-faced, middle-aged man. Amongst this group of elders, he appeared exceptionally young. He didn't have any fluctuations around him. His aura was like an extremely ordinary person. Most importantly, he looked extremely ordinary as well. Even though he was standing amongst this group of leaders, it was all too easy to overlook him. However, when Long Chen saw him, his blood instantly turned cold. It was like a viper was staring at him. Long Chen was immediately sure that the middle-aged man was a terrifying assassin. Perhaps he might not be the most powerful existence here, but he was definitely the most dangerous one. Long Chen's guess was not wrong. This was the master of the Bloodkill Hall, Zhong Ziang, the martial heaven continent's most terrifying assassin. However, it seemed that no one living had ever seen him fight. And even his name was something only the senior generation knew. Beside Zhong Zhang was an elder with 2 long antlers growing out of his forehead. He also had a barb growing out of his back that was like a sword. Moreover, his hands and feet were composed of 4 sharp claws that looked very similar to dragon claws. This elder was the leader of the ancient races, Long Juansong. He was the descendant of the human race and the heavenly spine-horn dragon race of the Xian beasts. The heavenly spine-horn dragon race was once an extremely terrifying existence amongst the Xian beasts, one that was not inferior to the Kunpeng race. However, although the reasons were unknown, the heavenly spine-horn dragon race had ended up with problems in their breeding and had later gone extinct. As a result, their bloodline only existed in the mixed blood of the ancient races. That was why Long Juansong called himself the descendant of the heavenly spine-horn dragon and worked to bring the ancient races back to the Xian beasts. The ancient races felt naturally close to the Xian beasts. Perhaps it was because the bloodline of the Xian beasts was too powerful, causing the ancient races to always return to them. However, the ancient races never had any feelings toward the human race, and they looked down on the human race. Other than them, there was another eye-attracting figure wearing Taoist robes. He had a long beard and he looked scholarly. However, his current expression was dark, and he was glaring daggers at Long Chen. Long Chen's mouth curled. He could guess this person's identity. He had to be the master of Heavenly Fate Island because only the scammers of Heavenly Fate Island liked to dress themselves up like this. Once again, his guess was correct. This person was truly the master of Heavenly Fate Island, and he called himself the Unfettered All-Seer. The unfettered part was usually a self-mocking title, because used in a derogatory sense, it indicated someone who had interest in living in reality. They wanted to live outside in world, or it referred to people who despised the world and wanted to live in a rebellious fashion. To put it in an ugly way, it was someone who didn't care about anything and was useless to the world. However, when a powerful expert gave himself this title, it was different. He became a particularly unique and outstanding figure. This kind of unique name suited Heavenly Fate Island's air of mystery and their scams. Today, this so-called unfettered all-seer looked different from someone who was actually unfettered. Such a person should appear transcendent and indifferent, but he looked angry. That was because in the end, he wasn't unfettered. He was in control of Heavenly Fate Island. And Heavenly Fate Island had just sent out its 4 most outstanding disciples, the 4 Fate Princes. They were the ones supposed to continue the legacy of Heavenly Fate Island, but they had all died in the Yin-Yang world. That was an unprecedented humiliation for Heavenly Fate Island. Not only had the 4 Fate Princes been killed, but even the Vice Island Master had been slain. Moreover, the Vice Island Master, a powerful Netherpassage expert who had reached the 2nd step, had actually been killed by a little soul transformation disciple. Long Chen had slain the young and the old of Heavenly Fate Island. Hence, this unfettered master wasn't able to remain indifferent. This was supposed to be something that would come at no cost to Heavenly Fate Island, but they had lost their 4 Fate Princes and the Vice Island Master. He was infuriated. He was glaring at Long Chen like he wanted to swallow him whole. Actually, it wasn't just the unfettered all-seer who was furious. Whether it was Yu Xiaoyun, Di Long, Xie Wenyan, Long Juansong, Peng Wanli, and Zhong Ziang, they were all furious. Their losses in the Yin-Yang world were simply too great. The plan had been so perfect and detailed. They had sent all their elites, and with such immense power, they should have captured Long Chen and the others in one fell swoop. Originally, they had thought that just half the disciples would have been enough. But to be safe, they had doubled the forces they sent. However, this perfect plan of theirs went horribly wrong. When they saw Hualayan, Xie Luo, True Immortal Jiaoqi, Di Long, and the others come running out, they were unable to believe their eyes. Over 2 million elites had entered, but even including Hualayan and the others, only 37 had escaped. They almost went insane. However, they had one final backup to their plan, and that was to catch Long Chen and the others at the transportation formation. But when they had rushed over there, they had found that the formation had been broken midway. They had then rushed to the battlefield, only to find the corpses of 33 Netherpassage experts. The news of those deaths had instantly spread, and the leaders of the various large powers could no longer sit still. They immediately charged over to Clearwind City. Their hideous losses made their hearts drip blood. For 100% chance of victory, each of them had sent at least 70% of their strongest disciples, but they had essentially all been killed. They were unable to accept this. They had to make the Martial Heaven Alliance pay a miserable price. When they saw Long Chen and the Dragonblood Legion without a single casualty, their fury exploded even more. They wanted to attack immediately just to kill them. Chu Jianying, hand over Long Chen and the Dragonblood Legion, as well as the disciples who participated in the Battle of the Yin Yang World, or we'll trample your Martial Heaven Alliance into the ground, shouted Yu Xiaoyan. Yu Xiaoqian immediately shouted a condition that Chu Jianying couldn't possibly accept. His goal was clear. He didn't want just those disciples dead. He wanted the Martial Heaven Alliance destroyed. Trample my Martial Heaven Alliance? Ah, good, then let me see if you have that ability. Chu Jianying laughed furiously. Yu Xiaoyun and the others' plan had failed, and now they wanted justice for their fallen disciples? It was useless talking reason with such people. Chu Jianying suddenly took out a small seal. She crushed it. Suddenly, the sound of an ancient bell resounded through the air from within the headquarters. The Martial Heaven Order. Startled cries rang out. Suddenly, a pillar of light soared out of the headquarters. One figure after another came flying out of the pillar of light, and one of them in particular let out a furious roar. You still dare to bully my children? Today, I'll kill all of you bastards. The speaker was the old man who had just left. He had come charging out again. There were two kinds of Martial Heaven orders. The first one was used to gather troops in times of danger. It was the one that Yi Lingshan had used in the Yin Yang world to summon the Martial Heaven Alliance's warriors. However, the one that Chu Jianying had just activated was supreme. It was the highest order within the Martial Heaven Alliance, and something only the Alliance head was qualified to issue. Furthermore, the seal that she had just crushed was a one-time use item. The various sect leaders underneath the banner of the Martial Heaven Alliance always had a summon seal on them. When this supreme Martial Heaven order was activated, all they would have to do was crush their seal, and it would form a spatial channel leading to Chu Jianying. This was an extremely terrifying seal. Once activated, it meant a bloody war was about to start. Guangyin, wait a moment. Chu Jianying grabbed the old man who was charging forward with the heaven-splitting blade. This battle is very important. Reserve your temper. This relates to the life and death of the entire Martial Heaven Alliance. It was only when Chu Jianying said how grave this situation was that the old man stopped. He glared at the enemy forces. Fine, I'm not afraid of waiting. I've long since found these bastards displeasing. More and more experts came flying out of the beam of light. Each of them had grave expressions. They all knew that a true battle was about to start. Very quickly, Long Chen also saw the old patriarch return. The patriarch imperceptibly nodded toward him. That put Long Chen at ease. The patriarch had been in a rush to leave because he had been worried about the Xintian Dao sect's safety. However, the truth was that this was just an excuse. His real goal was to send Yu Xiaoqian away with no one the wiser. More and more experts came flying out. In just a few breaths' time, hundreds of Netherpassage experts had arrived. However, after a dozen breaths' time, no one else came. The spatial channel behind Chu Jianying gradually closed. The ones who were coming had now come. Even if you gave the rest an hour to consider it, they wouldn't come. There were over 600 Netherpassage experts here now, standing behind Chu Jianying. Chu Jianying's expression became a bit unsightly. She was filled with disappointment. It was impossible that any sect leader would have missed the Martial Heaven Order. However, only a portion of them had come. The thing that disappointed her the most was the absence of many familiar faces that had fought together with her before. That was what made her feel the worst. The passing of time caused many things to change, including people's feelings. Reality was even crueler than what Chu Jianying had expected. Clearwind City was thrown into chaos, and the residents of the city fled outside. If these experts were to start fighting, Clearwind City would be instantly annihilated. Staying in the city would leave them only with their corpses. Chu Jianying, I suppose you never expected this. Your stubbornness and foolishness have long since dissatisfied others. The Martial Heaven Alliance is currently filled with chaos because of you. People have long since left your alliance. The world's #1 alliance might be attractive at other times, but now, not even a third of your people have answered your highest summons. The Martial Heaven Alliance's hearts are no longer yours. Do you know where you went wrong now? Said Yu Xiaoyun coldly. The Martial Heaven Alliance's actual power was extremely terrifying. If all of its experts arrived, they would be strong enough to easily crush their enemies. Even if it was just half, their numbers would be equal. It was you who secretly sowed dissension amongst our ranks. After buying a bunch of traitors, do you still have the face to criticize others? You really are the world's most shameless person. Seeing Chu Jianying's unsightly expression, Yi Lingshan angrily shouted. Silence! You aren't qualified to speak here. Yu Xiaoyun's shout was like thunder, and a kind of supreme will immediately locked onto Yi Lingshan. She stared in shock. Suddenly, Long Chen stepped forward in front of Yi Lingshan. Space shook and all the experts were shocked. He's actually able to block a Netherpassage expert's supreme will, exclaimed one Netherpassage expert. The will of a Netherpassage expert was forged through going through life and death. Hence, it was a will that transcended life and death. Those who hadn't comprehended life and death couldn't possibly resist it. However, Long Chen was able to force away that supreme will using just his own will. In fact, he was even able to force Yu Xiaoyun's will away from others. Nice. The old man smiled. Seeing Long Chen's growth made him feel even happier than having advanced to the Netherpassage realm himself. If she isn't qualified to speak, then what qualifications do you have to spout such bullshit? Just because you lived a bunch of years for nothing? Is someone big bullying someone small very glorious? For someone like you to be Pill Valley's master, it seems Lord Brahma and Fallen Day Knight are both blind, sneered Long Chen. Gasps rang out. Long Chen's guts were truly big to even drag two gods into his words. He dared to even blaspheme gods. Was he afraid of nothing? Long Chen, you colluded with the original devil race to harm the Martial Heaven Continent's geniuses. Now you're even blaspheming my gods. Today, no matter who protects you, it will be useless. You must face the entire continent's execution, shouted Yu Xiaoyun. Long Chen snorted derisively. This world really is one where whoever's fist is harder is right. If someone's mouth is bigger, they can even invert black and white. Tell me, did you personally see me collude with the original devil race? You want to argue? The photographic jades of you working together with that woman of the original devil race to slaughter the Martial Heaven Continent's experts are all in our hands. Just how are you going to defend yourself? Sneered Yu Xiaoyun. Are you an idiot? When did I ever work together with her? She was killing her target, while I was killing mine. It's just that the time and place were the same. How did that turn into collusion? Could it be that to prove I have no connection with her, I was supposed to just lay there and let my opponents kill me when she started fighting? Would that prove my innocence? Tell me, is your head full of rotten tofu? In your own photographic jades, did you ever see her say a single word to me? Long Chen scoffed. Although you didn't speak to her, who knows whether or not you communicated spiritually? Snorted Yu Xiaoyun. Awal said, Who knows? Who knows whether or not you're an undercover agent the original devil race left behind on the continent? Demanded Long Chen. What a giant joke, sneered Yu Xiaoyun. How is it a joke? I have evidence behind my guess just like you. Your Pill Valley set up a banner as a neutral power and then spent every day silently selling fake medicine to rake in the profits. Even if you refuse to admit to anything else, I suppose everyone here has heard of the scandal of the bone-forging pills back in the Eastern Wasteland's pill tower. You intentionally reduced the effect of the pills to make people buy more pills. When you were exposed by the Huayan sect, you set up a few unremarkable characters to take the heat and then paid off a few people to settle the waves. But in truth, the bone-forging pill is just one of many pills that you've lowered the effect of. Do you yourself not know how much money you've made with this scam? You must know how much money you made, because you then used this money to buy the leaders of the large sects and drive wedges between the members of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Then you used the Yin-Yang world to collude with Heavenly Fate Island and get as many of the continent's geniuses killed as possible. You had all the large powers send their disciples to their deaths, while your Pill Valley merely sent 13 people. If it wasn't for the foolish plan you concocted with Heavenly Fate Island, how do you think we, who only numbered 600,000 weak people, could possibly defeat an army of 2 million elites? Absolute non-dash. Are you trying to silence the truth? Since you're slandering me and want to kill me, I don't mind exposing all your crimes. You set up the various large powers to take huge losses. Your goal was to make them feel pain, which would lead to hatred. You would then turn that hatred against the Martial Heaven Alliance. When that happens, rivers of blood would flow between the Martial Heaven Alliance and the other large powers of the continent. However, your Pill Valley would remain unscathed. You would profit no matter who won, said Long Chen. Are you all fools? You were used, and you didn't even realize it. You sent your best disciples out, while Pill Valley and Heavenly Fate Island conned them to their deaths. Use your brains. 2 million experts, all of whom were elites, were annihilated by us. If they didn't take the initiative to cooperate with us, how could we kill so many people? Then think, just how many disciples did you send out? And how many disciples did Pill Valley send? Even if you don't have brains, use your butt to think and you should still be able to figure it out. Pill Valley wants a huge battle between the large powers of the continent. Tell me, just who would benefit from that? Who would profit the most? Tell me, just who is the real person colluding with the original devil race to destroy the continent? Long Chen's words were filled with great passion, and his voice shuddered and even became a bit hoarse at perfect times. He was extremely eloquent. Both friends and foes looked at the Ashen Yu Xiaoyun suspiciously. They really did start to feel a bit suspicious due to Long Chen's words. You're making up nonsense. My Pill Valley is the legacy of true gods. How could we possibly collude with the original devil race? There's no need for more words. Today, Long Chen and his Dragonblood Legion must be killed, shouted Yu Xiaoyun, his whole body shuddering with fury. Just try and touch my children. The old man immediately stepped forward, pointing the heaven-splitting blade at Yu Xiaoyun. Since you want to die, that's fine. Yu Xiaoyun suddenly extended a hand and a giant furnace appeared, causing the stars to shudder. It smashed toward the old man. Long Chen find a chance to run. Yu Xiaoyun has already achieved his goal. He won't give you any chance to argue. If this battle starts, the entire continent will be thrown into chaos. All the large powers will be damaged at their core, and Pill Valley will become the greatest winner. Li Tianxian sent a message to Long Chen. Understood. Long Chen nodded. Yu Xiaoyun had played the Martial Heaven continent like a giant chessboard. Now, the board was reaching its final stage. Whether or not Long Chen had colluded with the original devil race wasn't important. Even without Yu Xiaoyun, he would have other excuses to start this battle. The main conflict between the two sides was now concentrated on Long Chen. Yu Xiaoyun was stubbornly insisting that Long Chen and the Dragonblood Legion had colluded with the original devil race, using that to light the flames of war. The day-night furnace and the heaven-splitting blade erupted with divine light. The stars in the sky shook, as their terrifying clash caused even the Daos of the world to fragment. Cloud. Long Chen, who had been waiting for this clash, immediately sent a message to Cloud. Cloud transformed into her true body, and the Dragonblood Legion's experts jumped onto her back. She transformed into a streak of light that shot away. Running to escape the punishment for your crimes? If you weren't feeling guilty, why would you run? Sneered De Long. He raised a hand, and a giant palm reached out to block Cloud. Cloud's true body was giant, but compared to this gigantic hand, she appeared tiny. A ray of sword light slashed down from the sky, cutting that hand in two. Running means they're guilty, but not running means being killed by you. Long Chen is right, whoever's mouth is bigger is capable of inverting right and wrong. Yen Nantian appeared in the sky, a sword in his hand. He was the one who had broken Di Long's attack. At the same time, the other 3 Grand Elders of the Martial Heaven Alliance also appeared, their expressions calm. With Di Long blocked, Cloud vanished over the horizon. No one could catch up to her. As for the fierce clash between the old man and Yu Xiaoyun, it caused primal chaos to explode as the laws of the world were shattered. The old man was forced back over and over again. After all, the old man had just advanced to the Netherpassage realm, while Yu Xiaoyun was in the Death realm, the 3rd step of Netherpassage. The difference in cultivation base was extremely great. Being forced back infuriated the old man. With a roar, his white hair stood on end, and the heaven-splitting blade rumbled. A terrifying pressure crashed down, causing the world to change color. That's the legendary 9th form of Split the Heavens. Legend has it that the 9th form is a divine ability capable of cutting apart heaven and earth, of destroying the entire world. This aura is truly terrifying. The old man seemed possessed by a god as he raised the heaven-splitting blade. His aura was crazily climbing as if there was no limit. Guangyun don't. Seeing the old man's actions, Chu Jianying instantly turned pale as paper. What's there to be afraid of? Trading the life of an old man like me for the life of Pill Valley's master is definitely worth it. As for the heaven-splitting battle sect, it will still have Long Chen. He will be able to bring the heaven-splitting battle sect back to its former glory. As for Pill Valley, once he's dead, they'll have nothing. The old man laughed, his voice booming amongst the crumbling chaos around him. The 9th form of Split the Heavens was the peak. There was a legend that said that it required awakening divine energy to use. Without the support of that divine energy, it was possible to use it once at the price of the user's life energy. Yu Xiaoyun's expression changed. He felt a terrifying pressure lock onto him. Although there were countless powerful experts around him, he was the only one who would be facing this attack. You want to exchange your life for mine? Let's see if you have that ability. Yu Xiaoyun crossed his hands before him, and the world behind him exploded. 2 giant statues appeared in the sky. Those 2 statues were of Pill Valley's gods, Lord Brahma and Fallen Day Knight. Sacred divine light flowed around them. Rather than statues, it was like the 2 gods had come in person. People couldn't help feeling an urge to kneel. I have the power of God supporting me. Let's see just who will die here, sneered Yu Xiaoyun. Then let's see. The old man ignored the statues. His gaze was electric as his aura suddenly soared to a new level. A giant sword image soared into the sky. All the Netherpassage experts felt a chill. They felt a prickling sensation on their skin. None of them had expected the old man, who had just advanced to the Netherpassage realm, to be able to unleash such power. Guangyun, you can't. Chu Jianying's tears suddenly spilled over. She knew that if this sword fell, the old man would forever vanish from this world. However, she also knew that if she tried to stop him, it would only distract him. It wouldn't change that this move had to be unleashed, so her thoughts were in a whirlwind. All the experts tensed. Once this move was unleashed, it would mean a giant war would fully erupt through this world. What is all this anger for? Wouldn't sitting down and having a drink be better? Suddenly, a gentle voice resounded through the air, a voice that made all those tense nerves loosen. Shockingly, the clashing chaotic energy raging through the world calmed down as well. Both the old man and Yu Xiaoyun's auras faded. The statues behind Yu Xiaoyun vanished, and the giant sword image of the old man's also vanished. Which expert has come? I would ask that you reveal yourself, called out Yu Xiaoyun. I wouldn't dare call myself an expert. I am just an old drunkard. But since you've summoned me, I'll thicken my face. An elder with a kind and gentle smile suddenly walked out from the distance. He held a wooden staff, and there was a wine gourd tied to his waist. His robes were a bit old-fashioned, but they were extremely clean. The wine god palace's high priest. Suddenly, a startled cry rang out as someone recognized this elder's identity. Following that person's shout, the others jumped in shock. This was a legendary figure, the emissary of the wine god, someone who was closest to the gods. His cultivation base was unfathomable. Although his fame was great, only a few had ever seen him at all, let alone seen him fighting. That was why many people only viewed him as a mysterious figure and not some peerless expert. However, just now, with just a few words, he had suppressed Yu Xiaoyun and the old man's attacks. That level of cultivation base was absolutely terrifying. "Senior, what is an outsider like you doing here? Do you have any teachings for us?" asked Yu Xiaoyun. Even he was fearful of this person, but his gaze was still cold. That was because there had been some bad blood between the Wine God Palace and Pill Valley in the past, which had resulted in both sides parting ways. Perhaps the youngsters here didn't know of it, but the senior generation knew that this was a stain on Pill Valley's history. So Yu Xiaoyun's gaze was sharp. He felt like the high priest had come to go against his Pill Valley. That was why he immediately called him an outsider. His meaning was clear. This wasn't any of his business. The high priest said, "Valley Master, you are correct. However, whether I'm an outsider or not depends on how big the board is. If you were to start fighting here, it would implicate the entire Martial Heaven continent. Millions of lives would be ended. The Wine God Palace is part of the Martial Heaven continent, so we would also be implicated, so arguing that I'm an outsider means nothing. Don't you think you're making a mountain out of a molehill? Pill Valley is just capturing the spies of the original devil race for the safety of the continent. Everything we do is for the lives of the world. Don't you think you're inverting black and white with your words?" said Yu Xiaoyun. You misunderstand. I'm not here to mediate things or judge anyone. After all, I'm at such an age that I can't be bothered with such things. I'm only here to say a few words to everyone. Currently, the Martial Heaven continent has entered a great era, and many geniuses are being born. The continent is growing stronger and stronger. However, don't forget that it's not just the Martial Heaven continent that is going through its great era. Don't forget what the Dark Era represents. After saying that, the high priest actually turned and left. However, the Dark Era he mentioned rang out in people's minds over and over again. The impact of those words was immense. The Dark Era always followed the Great Era. The descent of the Great Era also indicated that the Dark Era would come quickly. Seeing the high priest leave, Yu Xiaoyun announced, "It is precisely because the Dark Era is coming that we must be united against traitors and spies of our enemies. We have to be able to develop in peace. As long as Long Chen doesn't die, the Martial Heaven continent cannot know peace. Valley Master, don't you feel like your words are a slap in your own face?" Just at this moment, a large group of people appeared. When he saw their leader, Yu Xiaoyun's expression changed. The high priest had left, but now, a large group of people had come. They numbered over 500, and they were all Netherpassage experts. The sight of them shocked everyone present. That was because all those people were wearing the same robes to indicate their status. These 500 Netherpassage experts were all from one sect. The Huayun sect. These Netherpassage experts were all wearing the robes of the Huayun sect. Their leader was a thin old man who didn't look special, not having any of the air of an expert. That person smiled and cupped his fists in greeting. "Sorry, the past few years, it's been tough to carry on my business. The world's not very safe, so I have no choice but to bring a few more bodyguards." This person spoke very openly and amicably, but for him to have 500 Netherpassage experts as bodyguards made him look dazzling. How could just anyone look like that? There was no other sect in the world that had such power. It was now apparent to all why Pill Valley would feel fearful of the Huayun sect. This kind of foundation was truly terrifying. The majority of sects only knew that the Huayun sect possessed a bottomless pool of wealth, but they had never imagined that they would be powerful to this extent. "Ma Ruyun, what do you think you're doing?" demanded Yu Xiaoyun. "If you use this kind of tone, you'll frighten people. We are just a group of businessmen, so naturally we're here for our business. Seeing a business opportunity and not taking action would make us bad businessmen," replied the elder. This person was the master of the Huayun sect, Ma Ruyun, one of the most influential people in the world. "Don't talk in circles. If you have something to say it directly," said Yu Xiaoyun coldly. It seems that the Valley Master doesn't like talking gently. Alright, I'll get straight to the point. The Martial Heaven Alliance is an old client of my Huayan sect. Alliance head Chu Jianying is someone my Huayan sect depends on for our livelihood. She looks after us, and without her cooperation, I don't even know how many people would go hungry in my Huayan sect. So, when one of our clients is in trouble, it's a business opportunity. There are money investments, but there are also emotional investments. I'm sure someone as wise as the Valley Master knows what I'm talking about, said Ma Ruyun. You mean you wish to interfere in this matter? Have you forgotten the Huayan sect's purpose? Demanded Yu Xiaoyun. The Huayan sect was just a business. It could not interfere in personal matters of any sections. That was their core principle. That is why I said that your previous words were a slap in your own face. You said that since the Dark Era was coming, we should be united against outside threats. But I thought that Pill Valley was a neutral power that didn't interfere with the other powers of the continent. Why have you suddenly taken a new attitude, acting like the savior of the world and raising your blade against others? Asked Ma Ruyun. It's for the peace of the Martial Heaven continent, raged Yu Xiaoyun. Then I'm doing the same. The Martial Heaven Alliance is our largest alliance and the most stable foundation of our world. If this foundation is rocked, the world will definitely be thrown into chaos. If the continent is thrown into chaos at such a time, it will spell disaster. For the world, as a member of the Martial Heaven continent, the Huayan sect must carry this burden to support the Martial Heaven Alliance. For ourselves, if the world was thrown into chaos, it would be a huge blow to our business. The losses would be inestimable. So in either case, we have a reason to stand beside the Martial Heaven Alliance. After all, we're different from Pill Valley. Pill Valley's various healing pills, poison dispelling pills, soul-nourishing pills, and explosive pills are all used in battle, and at a frightening rate at that. If a war were to start, your Pill Valley might profit immensely, but my Huayan sect would have to tighten its belt. So we have no other choice, said Ma Ruyun. Upon hearing those words, everyone's expressions changed when they looked at Yu Xiaoyun. If a battle were to erupt here, the one to benefit the most would really be Pill Valley. On the battlefield, there were sometimes no chances to heal, and so they could only rely on medicinal pills to hold on. Whoever bought more pills would have a greater chance of surviving. When they heard Long Chen say that Yu Xiaoyun was an agent of the original devil race, although his words had some reason, most people didn't really believe it. That was because they all knew that Pill Valley had the legacy of true gods. Yu Xiaoyun wouldn't dare to betray his gods, so there was no chance he would collude with the original devil race. However, Ma Ruyun was different. First of all, his status was completely different, and his words possessed greater weight. His words were also more believable, as he was merely pointing out that Pill Valley would profit the most from war. The corrupt path, the ancient races, the Xian beasts, the ancient family alliance, and all the various large powers began to smell the scent of a scheme. Long Chen had said that there was a scheme, and now Ma Ruyun was also pointing out that Pill Valley was the one who would profit from war. That's absolute nonsense. When has my Pill Valley ever done something so shameless? I am doing this entirely because Long Chen colluded with the original devil race to destroy the continent. I had no choice but to stand up, shouted Yu Xiaoyun. His expression changed when he saw various experts casting suspicious glances at him. Long Chen's wedge had been driven in by Ma Ruyun's words. Suddenly, the unfettered all-seer from Heavenly Fate Island stepped forward. He is correct. I can testify that Valley Master Yu was doing this for the continent's safety. My Heavenly Fate Island foresaw 100 years ago that when the Great Era came, a fiend that would be a calamity for the continent would be born. After years of observation, we are now sure that Long Chen is that fiend. Everyone knows about Long Chen's history. He came from some secular empire in the eastern wasteland. Just how many conflicts have arisen because of him? Just how much slaughter has he committed? Just how many people has he killed? Perhaps the rise of an expert requires stepping over the corpses of his enemies. But then have you ever heard of any genius who is surrounded by unending battles and slaughter like Long Chen? Wherever he goes, he brings a calamity with him. Fuck your fucking mother, it was those people who brought it upon themselves. If Long Chen didn't fight back, he would have died to them. Was he supposed to just let them kill him? The old man finally couldn't endure it anymore and cursed the unfettered all-seer. You say that they brought it upon themselves? Then why did they all end up going for Long Chen instead of someone else? Isn't it precisely because Long Chen is fated to be this world's most wicked person? He creates conflicts with everyone. I guarantee that the world will never know peace while he is alive. He is the worst culprit in the current Martial Heaven Alliance's chaos, said the unfettered all-seer. You fucking dash! The old man suddenly charged forward with the heaven-splitting blade, but Chu Jianying, who had long since been prepared, suddenly grabbed onto him tightly. At the same time, other people came forward to grab his neck, legs, and arms. Brother Wu, calm down. Now isn't the time to attack, said the elder holding the old man's neck. They were old acquaintances. Let go of me. What group are you from? I'm going to kill these damn tortoise bastards and turn them into turtle jelly, roared the old man. The tense atmosphere ended up becoming strange when the old man said turtle jelly. It was unexpected that the berserk heaven-splitting battle sex master actually had a humorous side. However, Chu Jianying and the others continued to hold on to him tightly. When the heaven-splitting battle sex people's heads turned hot, they would even dare to attack a god. The unfettered all-seer's expression sank upon being cursed like this. He was about to say something when Ma Ruyun suddenly said, "Fighting like this is meaningless. There's also no need for anyone to act like they're confused about the truth. You say that Long Chen is a fiend, you say that he is colluding with the original devil race, you say that he is the Martial Heaven Alliance's calamity, but it is only your side that is saying this. What proof do you have? Do you think you can convict anyone you point at? Perhaps you feel that way because you have the power to do so. In this world, there are conditions to being able to talk reason with someone. A wolf won't talk reason with a rabbit, and a dragon won't talk reason with a lion. The power difference between the two sides is too immense, so there is no need to talk reason. You were willing to start a fight because you felt that you were strong enough. But now that Ma Ruyun sect is supporting the Martial Heaven Alliance, if you still feel that you are strong enough, then there's no need to waste any more words. You can begin this war right now. In any case, we're equally matched, so both sides will bleed. Then when the dark era comes, we can all be annihilated together and that will be the end. That's right, either fuck off or fight. Come, shouted the old man immediately. Those on Pill Valley's side retreated, no longer wanting a war. When the war started, they would all suffer, so they could smell a scheme. Moreover, many of them had connections with the Huayan sect. If they offended the Huayan sect, they would definitely have some harsh days ahead of them. Due to various factors, they became hesitant. Although Ma Ruyun wasn't a large or imposing figure, standing there, it was like everything was in his control. In comparison to Yu Xiaoyun, he looked more kingly. Ma Ruyun stood there, calmly looking at Yu Xiaoyun. There were over 100 Netherpassage experts behind him who didn't make a sound. In truth, the Huayan sect had 4 assistant sect masters, and it was usually those assistant sect masters that handled things in the outside world. Ma Ruyun was someone who many knew the name of but few had ever seen. However, Ma Ruyun had personally come here with 500 Netherpassage experts. That was the greatest display of power that the Huayan sect had shown in all of its history. The most terrifying power in this world wasn't talent, it wasn't magical arts, it wasn't battle skills, it wasn't divine abilities. It was wealth. The Huayan sect's auction houses were spread throughout every corner of this world. After so many years of business, it was unknown just how much wealth they had accumulated. With such wealth, they had to have secretly groomed their own power. The vision of businessmen always had to be looking ahead. They definitely wouldn't have just groomed themselves into being larger and larger sheep to be slaughtered. As long as it had money, even a sheep could become a ruler. It could even employ a pack of wolves as bodyguards. In this world, money wasn't everything, but not having money was doom. No matter how great someone's talent, without money to support it, it would mean nothing. If a genius of painting didn't even have the money to buy a brush, they would naturally be overlooked. Someone mediocre could be raised to a certain level as long as they had a teacher and the wealth to support themselves. The reason the Huayan sect dared to challenge Pill Valley was because they were in control of that terrifying power, wealth. In truth, whether it was Pill Valley or the Huayan sect, there was no way to estimate their wealth or their foundation. So no one was willing to offend them. The Huayan sect and Pill Valley had both expressed their attitudes now. The corrupt path, the ancient races, the ancient family alliance, the Xian beasts, the Bloodkill Hall, even Heavenly Fate Island, they all hesitated. If they offended the Huayan sect, they wouldn't be able to sell their wares or buy what they needed. However, in comparison to the other leaders, the corrupt path's leader, Nian, was still calm. He hadn't revealed much shock at all. At this time, he suddenly said, "Today, to give face to sect Master Ma, the corrupt path will retreat from this place. However, Long Chen and his Dragonblood Legion must be slain by the corrupt path, so I hope you can give me an answer." Upon hearing this, everyone's expression changed. Nian was actually the first to compromise. However, Ma Ruyun wasn't surprised at all. He knew that if a battle were to start here, even if the Martial Heaven Alliance was destroyed, it would only be a third of its sum. There was still another 2/3 of the righteous path that had not joined. They would ally themselves with Pill Valley, and Pill Valley would try to mediate things between the righteous path and the corrupt path, making them both take a step back and settle their differences. However, that was impossible. The hatred between the righteous path and the corrupt path could not be mediated. Furthermore, the righteous path was crafty and wily, and they would definitely play tricks. Sooner or later, the corrupt path would end up at a loss. It was better for them to maintain the current fractured state of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Pill Valley would make sure the Martial Heaven Alliance's interior was kept chaotic, while the corrupt path could just watch. To have become the leader of the corrupt path, Nian was no fool. He knew that if he followed along with Pill Valley's plan, the only one to benefit in the end was Pill Valley. The other powers would become Pill Valley's subordinates. No one wanted to be used by others, and this current state of the board had already been very profitable to the corrupt path. Pulling out here was perfect timing, and he even had a perfect excuse by saying he was giving the Huayan sect face. The battle between the righteous path and the corrupt path has been going on for many years. The hatred that has been built up can't be resolved by anyone. As the Huayan sect is just a business, we won't bother with such things. We just want the Martial Heaven continent to maintain at least a peaceful appearance on the surface. That will allow us to make enough money to feed ourselves. I, Ma Ruyun, will represent the Huayan sect and its millions of disciples in thanking you, said Ma Ruyun. The Huayan sect's people were all businessmen at their core. As long as they were facing their clients, the former would view the latter as their livelihood and wouldn't treat them with the slightest arrogance or airs. It was precisely because the Huayan sect was so polite that many people had assumed that their power wasn't very great. But now their opinions had completely changed. The 500 experts that Ma Ruyun had brought weren't just to support the Martial Heaven Alliance, but they were also a show of power. They were warning those eyeing the Huayan sect. Seeing that the Huayan sect didn't care if the corrupt path continued to hunt Long Chen, Nian cupped his fists. Saying goodbye to Yu Xiaoyun, he turned and left. Over 200 Netherpassage experts of the corrupt path also left with him. Yu Xiaoyun's expression was a bit dark. He had already guessed what Nian was thinking. The current state of affairs was most beneficial to Nian, so he wanted to maintain it. That's fine. Now that things have reached this point, we've already won. There's no way that Long Chen and his Dragonblood Legion will be able to escape the net we have established. Forcing things at this point clearly isn't wise. The unfettered All-Seer sent a message to Yu Xiaoyun. The High Priest and Ma Ruyun's arrival had caused the board to change. The majority of these people's anger had faded to be replaced with calm heads. So both of them had lost their chance to use that anger to start a war. Despite that, they had still won. Once the Dragonblood Legion and Long Chen were eliminated, the Martial Heaven Alliance would be nothing to fear. Without so many genius disciples, it would only be a few years before they declined. Don't forget, they have tens of thousands of people that participated in the life and death tides comprehension. Even if we kill Long Chen, they will still be a threat once they grow up, replied Yu Xiaoyun. There's no need to worry. Apply pressure from the outside and buy them from the inside bit by bit. If they can't be bought, isn't the Bloodkill Hall right there? Those talented disciples can disappear one by one, and once the pressure is great enough, they will naturally submit, said the unfettered all-seer indifferently. Yu Xiaoyun nodded. Turning to Ma Ruyun and Chu Jianying, he said, "Since that's the case, let's make an agreement. Long Chen and the Dragonblood Legion have colluded with the original devil race to slaughter the disciples of the various powers. They are enemies of the entire continent and must be eliminated. We will hunt them down, and no one is allowed to block us, or they will also be viewed as enemies." The other experts that Yu Xiaoyun had brought nodded. They had lost far too many disciples this time. They had to do something or their morale would crumble. "Fuck off, my heaven-splitting battle sect doesn't agree. You want to bully my children? Then you'll have to step over my corpse first," shouted the old man. "Calm down. This is just a stopgap. We have to first ensure that this battle doesn't occur." Li Tianxian hastily sent a message to him. They had to first agree to this. Once this army left, there were still many ways that they could protect Long Chen. "That's also unacceptable. I'm not going to let the children be wronged like this," shouted the old man. Li Tianxian sighed. The heaven-splitting battle sex people were as difficult to talk to as ever. "Useless cowards, what are you afraid of? You might be afraid, but I'm not." The old man suddenly pointed the heaven-splitting blade at Yu Xiaoyun. "I, Wu Guangyuan, declare that as long as I have breath in my body, no one should even think about bullying my children." After saying that, the old man left. It was unknown if he was going to find Long Chen or if he simply didn't want to keep talking to others here. If he was threatening an ordinary sect, they definitely wouldn't dare to target Long Chen. However, Yu Xiaoyun and the others could not be threatened. Although the old man was powerful, he wasn't smart enough. A good trap could easily kill him. Their main goal was still Long Chen. "What do we do?" Chu Jianying surprisingly sent Li Tianxian a question. Li Tianxian had always been wise, so Chu Jianying wanted to hear his opinion. After all, Long Chen was a disciple of the Xintian Dao sect. Agree to their request. Expel Long Chen and the Dragonblood Legion from the Xintian Dao sect and the Martial Heaven Alliance, said Li Tianxian without hesitation. "How am I supposed to do that? It's completely unfair to Long Chen," raged Chu Jianying. "Has your anger clouded your judgment? Weren't you the one who said it was a stopgap? Today he is expelled, and tomorrow he can rejoin," said Li Tianxian. Why did these seniors of his not know how to think in a roundabout manner? "But they will. Don't worry, no one can kill Long Chen," guaranteed Li Tianxian. However, inside he was definitely worried. A heaven defier wouldn't die to the hands of a human because they never had that chance. But the people beside Long Chen weren't heaven defiers. If Long Chen would rather die with his Dragonblood Legion, then he would be killing himself. The reason those heaven defiers of history never died to other people's hands was because they were always lonely, isolated figures with nothing tying them down. But Long Chen was different, and his weakness was apparent. However, if they did not accept this condition, this matter would not be left like this. If they did start fighting, they would be going along with Yu Xiaoyun's plan. Chu Jianying bitterly smiled. The old man would probably hate her for this, but she was the only one who could play the bad person in this case. "I hereby announce that Long Chen and the Dragonblood Legion are no longer disciples of the Martial Heaven Alliance," said Chu Jianying. She felt her own head spinning and her heart dripping blood. Long Chen had already done so much for the Martial Heaven Alliance, and she was actually forcing Long Chen to carry this burden on his own. She herself felt despicable. Yu Xiaoyun was surprised that Chu Jianying would do this. That didn't match her character. Suddenly glancing at Li Tianxian, he understood. Unacceptable. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen is a righteous and loyal hero. He and his Dragonblood Legion protected us without caring about their own lives. Alliance head, how can we expel them? That is completely unfair. The disciples that had come out of the Yin-Yang world immediately went crazy. Chu Jianying's announcement immediately made the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples erupt into chaos. They could not accept this. Alliance head, you can't do this. Senior apprentice brother is the pillar of the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples. In the battles against the corrupt path, Just how many of their top experts did he kill? Don't you think doing so would hurt senior apprentice brother Long Chen? Shouted a short but thick man. In particular, his legs were especially thick. This person was the third commander, who had once challenged Long Chen, but had ended up being won over by him. He was the first to oppose Chu Jianying's decision to expel Long Chen. Alliance head, senior apprentice brother Long Chen led us through a death trap. We might be pressured by powerful enemies, but even if we die, we can't succumb to their threats, said the fourth commander. Silence. The Alliance head's decisions cannot be changed by you, shouted one of the elders of the Martial Heaven Alliance. The disciples were infuriated, but Yi Lingshan held them back. We have to respect the Alliance head's decisions. Senior apprentice Sister Lingshan, you. Now, even Qingqing was disappointed. They were infuriated, but they could only suppress their feelings. They weren't strong enough and weren't qualified to participate in such a heavy decision. Are you satisfied now? Chu Jianying glared daggers at Yu Xiaoyun. She knew that what Yu Xiaoyun wanted was this promise. This way, Long Chen would have nowhere to go. They could hunt him down to the ends of the world. Originally, she couldn't force herself to make this decision, but Li Tianxian pushed her to do it. That was the only way to resolve the current situation. However, this was sacrificing Long Chen. If you had known this would happen, would you have still acted so willfully from the start? If you hadn't selfishly tried to protect Long Chen, you wouldn't have to suffer today, and there wouldn't be so many geniuses that died such miserable deaths. That's all the consequences of your own actions. Yu Xiaoyun shook his head, sighing. Yu Xiaoyun. Having gotten what he wanted, he actually pushed the responsibility onto others. Chu Jianying unsheathed her sword and pointed it at Yu Xiaoyun, longing to cut him into 1,000,000 pieces. This person was too sinister, too shameless. Valley Master Yu, it's still too early to say who is right and who is wrong. In this world, the truth cannot become false, and the false cannot turn true. Even if you can cover it up for a while, the truth will be exposed sooner or later. When that time comes, whose name goes down in history for infamy or fame will be decided, said Li Tianxian with a polite smile. Although amongst these higher-ups, Li Tianxian was just a junior, he possessed a natural calm to him. His intelligence made others not dare to look down on him. Although his words were rather ambiguous, everyone present could tell that he was indicating that slandering Long Chen would only work for a while. The truth would come out sooner or later. It was well said. There was no proof that Long Chen had betrayed the Martial Heaven continent and colluded with the original devil race. Pill Valley was merely using power to force that reality. They didn't give Long Chen any chance to explain. In order to avoid having the entire world destroyed, the Martial Heaven Alliance had submitted. But when the truth revealed itself, the Martial Heaven Alliance would have the power to wash away that disgrace. This was all in preparation for that moment. I've long since heard that the Xiantiandao sect was led by a wise young leader. As expected, he's not ordinary. Ma Ruyun looked at Li Tianxian with a smile. That's correct. Regretfully, he's not part of our Huayan sect. Otherwise, we would be able to suppress Pill Valley in less than 10 years, said an elder standing beside Ma Ruyun. This elder was one of the Huayan sect's 4 assistant sect masters, Hua Mingxiong. He was also Zheng Wenlong's direct superior. However, Wenlong is good as well. He shows promise and is quite daring while having a good head and heart. However, he's still too young and needs more tempering. Give him some more authority in the future. Don't stifle his development, said Ma Ruyun. Yes. Hua Mingxiong smiled. Ma Ruyun rarely paid attention to the matters within the Huayan sect these days. Although there were 4 vice sect masters, the other 3 were in charge of their own businesses, while he, Hua Mingxiong, oversaw the overall development of the Huayan sect. Many people had come to think that he was the true leader of the Huayan sect. Hua Mingxiong was very fond of Zheng Wenlong and treated him like his own apprentice. Hearing that Ma Ruyun also had such a high opinion of Zheng Wenlong, he was delighted. True gold isn't afraid of being tempered by fire. My Pill Valley is simply trying to protect the Martial Heaven continent. We're not afraid of being criticized or cursed for our actions, said Yu Xiaoyun righteously. However, he didn't bring up anything about Long Chen's innocence. He merely stated Pill Valley's attitude. In other words, it didn't matter whether or not Long Chen had colluded with the original devil race. As long as there was a threat to the Martial Heaven continent, he would rather slay 1,000 innocents than let off one criminal. Even if they killed the wrong person, they were still doing it with the Martial Heaven continent at heart. They had a noble reason, so the people would understand them. Then let's wait and see. I think that time will prove everything. Li Tianxian smiled slightly despite Yu Xiaoyun's shameless quibbling. Let's wait and see. Yu Xiaoyun snorted, waving his hand and bringing his people away. The other leaders first said some words to Hua Mingxiong before taking their leave as well. After all, they weren't Pill Valley, and there were many areas where they needed the Huayan sect's cooperation. Since a fight hadn't started, they could continue that cooperation. Ma Ruyun rarely showed himself, but Hua Mingxiong was someone that many of them knew. The various experts began to leave one by one. In the end, Clearwind City returned to calm. Due to the protection of the Netherpassage experts, the battle in the sky hadn't affected the city. The old man and Yu Xiaoyun's most powerful exchange had been stopped by the High Priest, so Clearwind City wasn't damaged. The experts that had fled from Clearwind City slowly returned. Many thanks for your assistance, Sect Master Ma. Only now did Chu Jianying have a chance to express her thanks toward Ma Ruyun. If it weren't for him, with such a power disparity, Yu Xiaoyun wouldn't have let go of this chance to deal a heavy blow to the Martial Heaven Alliance. Alliance Head Chu, you're too courteous. Businessmen like us are most afraid of war. If there was a war, we'd have to beg just to survive. So you shouldn't thank me, but thank yourselves. If you really want to thank me, then buy a bit more so I can make a bit more money. Ma Ruyun smiled. I will remember this favor, promised Chu Jianying. Then I still have things to do, so I'll take my leave. Everyone, I hope you can remember this small shop owner when conducting your business in the future. Ma Ruyun laughed and brought his 500 Netherpassage experts away. Once everyone else had scattered, the Netherpassage experts of the Martial Heaven Alliance gathered in the Martial Heaven Palace. Chu Jianying expressed her thanks to these people that had come at such a time. Only at this time was it possible to see who was truly dependable. Sect Masterly, don't you feel like what we've done is letting down Long Chen? Once everyone was seated, Chu Jianying turned to Li Tianxian. There was no other choice. As one grows stronger, so does one's responsibilities. However, I believe that Long Chen will definitely understand and that he is capable of carrying this burden, said Li Tianxian. Then what should we do now? Send people to protect Long Chen secretly? Asked Chu Jianying. No, it's already too late for that. Based on Yu Xiaoyun and the unfettered Alseer's past schemes, they wouldn't have come unprepared. Li Tianxian shook his head. That startled everyone. Then do you mean, Li Tianxian sighed. First of all, the time at which Yu Xiaoyun came to the Martial Heaven Alliance is off. They arrived half an incense stick's worth of time later than I expected. They had definitely made some arrangements within that time. Long Chen's escape should be within their expectations, so running actually puts Long Chen in their trap. What? Then why did you make him run? Demanded Chu Jianying. If Long Chen didn't go, then even with the High Priest's warning and Sect Master Ma's reinforcements, there would have been no way to avoid this war. The truth is, while one of their goals is to kill Long Chen, their main goal was to instigate this war. If that happened, the Martial Heaven Alliance would be ruined, and the stragglers wouldn't have the power to threaten Pill Valley. If that war had started, then no matter who won, both sides would take heavy losses. However, our losses would definitely be greater, because we have only gathered a third of the Martial Heaven Alliance. If our members shrink any more, those righteous sects still watching from the sidelines will immediately lean toward Pill Valley. Our power cannot defeat the sum of the corrupt path, ancient races, ancient family alliance, Shen beasts, and the Bloodkill Hall. Even if everyone lost half their people, it isn't something we could endure. That's also why Yu Xiaoyun wanted this battle so badly. So as long as we fought, no matter the result, we would still lose. The only one capable of stopping that worst-case scenario was Long Chen, said Li Tianxian. But Long Chen is just a soul transformation disciple. The ones hunting him down are all Netherpassage experts. Just how is he supposed to do anything? Demanded others. That's another thing I don't know. But I believe that the fact that Long Chen could reach his current height is no coincidence. I trust him, said Li Tianxian. That's no good. I'm not going to let a child carry this burden while we sit here like a tortoise. We'll just have to change our appearance and cover up our identities. Quite a few Netherpassage experts immediately stood up. They felt that this was too unjust for Long Chen. It's already too late. The moment Long Chen left Clearwind City, he entered their trap. Right now, the fate of the Martial Heaven continent is in his hands. As for us, the only thing we can do is wait for news from Long Chen. Li Tianxian muttered as he looked in the direction where Long Chen had run. The cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow pierced through space rapidly. Long Chen, where are we going? Asked Meng Qi. Just go straight toward the eastern sea. Meng Qi, it'll be hard on you, but maintain your spiritual senses. If you sense any powerful auras, immediately avoid them. Long Chen's expression was grave. What is the matter? Asked Nian. Have you forgotten? The main conspirators behind this scheme are Pill Valley and Heavenly Fate Island. Considering their characters, how could they let us run? We'll definitely run into obstructions on our way, so everyone should be prepared, said Long Chen. Fuck no way. I just started being a good person, and I'm getting hunted down for it? I was able to get around when it was just me, but as soon as I go with you, I end up like this. Cursed Nian. He thought about how free he had been by himself. Now that he was fighting for the Martial Heaven Alliance, the Martial Heaven Alliance actually couldn't protect him. Long Chen smiled. Don't be resentful. As my brother, if I don't con you, who else am I going to con? Ah, that's true. Hearing this, the curious thing was that Nian actually smiled. But there's one thing I don't understand. Why aren't you angry? Why would I be angry? I'm grateful for what I have. I'm a disciple of the Xiantian Dao sect. Without the Xiantian Dao sect, I wouldn't have my current achievements. The Heaven-Splitting Battle sect is also my sect, and without the old man's care, I might have long since died. Chu Jianying is the old man's partner, and she cares so much about me she is willing to become enemies with the various powers of the world. In truth, although this war had been brewing for a long time thanks to certain people's schemes, if it weren't for me, Senior Chu Jianying wouldn't be forced into such a passive position. As men, if we dare to cause trouble, we have to accept the consequences. We can't retreat from this, nor can we blame God or others. Said Long Chen righteously. Stop. If you keep talking, I'll look like a petty little person who forgets favors in comparison. I admit that you're right, okay? Nian waved his hand in front of Long Chen. In terms of eloquence, he couldn't compare to Long Chen. His conning ability was truly spectacular. Suddenly, Cloud's body turned. Everyone shook, almost falling. It's as you said, Long Chen. There are experts trying to block us. I had Cloud avoid them, said Meng Qi, who was standing atop Cloud's head, her expression grave. What level are they? Asked Nian. I'm not sure. As soon as I sensed them, I had Cloud avoid them. Without thinking about it, since they were sent to stop us, they have to be Netherpassage experts, said Long Chen. Suddenly, Cloud began turning rapidly through the air. Meng Qi's expression changed. Not good. The path ahead has been fully blocked. There's 3 people ahead, and we have to charge past one of them. You pick one, said Long Chen. Curious. How did they know where we'd run? Asked Nian. You're underestimating Heavenly Fate Island too much. For their island master to even personally come out, even if we have divine items protecting us, they should still be able to read some slight clues. If they didn't have that little bit of power, Heavenly Fate Island wouldn't have achieved their current position with just scams, said Long Chen. Jiqiu, Nian, Zifeng, come to the front. Prepare your attacks. Whether or not we can charge past is dependent on this strike. Although Chu Yao, Lu Ruyun, and the others were also very powerful, they weren't sharp enough. If too many people attacked at once, the heavenly Dao energy in the surrounding space would become sparse. Long Chen and Yu Zifeng weren't Empyreans, and just Yi Zhiqiu and Mo Nian were enough. Any more and it would affect their attack power. Cloud, slow down and prepare yourself. Long Chen took a deep breath. He raised his hand, and a black flame lotus began to condense in his hand. Following that, sacred chanting began to resound through the air. The entire world felt like it had been ignited. Endless flame energy gathered into the flame lotus. The flame lotus had 9 petals, and each petal had a black sphere form at the top. As more flame energy was absorbed, runes began to light up along the petals, sending the flame energy to the spheres at the top of the petals. A terrifying aura slowly rose, growing stronger and stronger. The flame lotus also grew until it was gigantic. World Annihilation Flame Lotus. Long Chen suddenly flung the flame lotus through the air. Once he threw it out, Cloud sped up to follow it. The two of them charged through the air. Sacred chanting continued to resound through the air, and the flame lotus only grew larger. Just a moment later, they saw a giant net of twisting black and white energy. At the center of the net was an elder sitting in meditation. He had actually used his life and death energy to lock this space down. There were also Netherpassage experts to his distant left and right to make sure that no one could get past. When he sensed the flame lotus, the elder's eyes popped upon. With a snort, a blade appeared in his hand. Divine light flashed. Boom! The 9 black spheres on the top of the lotus exploded. A terrifying explosion erupted. The elder's arm shook. He was surprised that this flame lotus possessed such explosive power. He was actually knocked back a few steps, and the net behind him trembled. At the same time, Long Chen, Yi Zhiqiu, Mo Nian, and Yu Zifeng attacked. 2 rays of sword chi, a saber image, and an arrow shot out. Not good. This strike was perfectly timed with the flame lotus. Hence, the elder had no chance to recollect himself. His blade rumbled and divine runes flew out. Boom! His hasty block didn't even have half his true power. He was knocked back, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. It had to be known that this combined strike from Long Chen, Mo Nian, Yi Zhiqiu, and Yu Zifeng was something that even a Netherpassage expert couldn't take lightly, let alone receive with just half their power. However, a Netherpassage expert was still powerful. Although he had been injured, the net behind him didn't break. "Cloud!" shouted Long Chen. Runes suddenly appeared in Cloud's eyes. 2 rays of light shot out, striking his net. You think you can break my domain? Keep dreaming." The elder was shocked and enraged. To be injured by soul transformation disciples was an insult. Although this injury was nothing to him, it still infuriated him. Seeing Cloud attack his net, which was a condensation of his life and death domain, he snorted. His blade slashed down. However, unexpectedly, when Cloud's attack landed, it formed a ripple that spread to form a giant black hole. Cloud's body entered the ripple and then vanished. The elder's blade landed on thin air. His life and death domain was still present, but Long Chen and the others had already vanished. But how is that possible? The elder was dumbfounded. He suddenly thought of a kind of divine ability that the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow possessed that could ignore spatial bindings, the heaven-swallowing voidbreaker. However, the heaven-swallowing voidbreaker divine ability could only be used by descendants that possessed extremely pure bloodlines. Furthermore, they had to have advanced to the 11th rank first. These 2 requirements were a must, and yet Cloud had done it at just the 10th rank. Damn it, they got away. At this moment, the 2 other Netherpassage experts rushed over. The plan had been for the 3 of them to cooperate. Together, Long Chen and the others stood no chance. However, this flawless plan had actually met with failure. Looking at the direction Long Chen had gone, they didn't know what to do. Do we chase? That's no good. The cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow's speed is #1 in the world. Even the Golden Pring race has to concede defeat in that regard, so there's no way we can catch up. Hurry and report what happened here. Have the higher-ups think of something, said the injured Netherpassage expert. Sighing, he had no choice but to admit that he had been too careless. A success. Mo Nian laughed. The others sighed, relaxing. Long Chen, what is it? Meng Qi saw that Long Chen wasn't smiling. I keep feeling like something's wrong. Long Chen shook his head. Li Tianxian had told him that no one could calculate anything about him. If others were with him, their fates were linked with his, so Heavenly Fate Island shouldn't be able to calculate anything about Mo Nian or Yi Zhiqiu either. Therefore, they shouldn't be able to track their location and direction so easily. Fuck, what is this? Long Chen, you've all been expelled from the Martial Heaven Alliance. Mo Nian suddenly took out a jade plate on his waist. Yes, I know. I discussed it with the Xian master before leaving. This is the only way to resolve the current crisis. Long Chen nodded. What the fuck? Haven't you become everyone's target then? Mo Nian was speechless. I'm used to it. We would have left the Shen Dao sect and the Martial Heaven Alliance sooner or later. Leaving now or later makes no difference, said Long Chen. Meng Qi, help me examine everyone spiritually. See if anyone left a spiritual mark on us. However, even after a couple of hours, Meng Qi shook her head. She hadn't found anything odd, making Long Chen frown. This kind of result meant that they either weren't tracking them this way, or whoever had done it was at such a supreme level that even Meng Qi's spiritual strength was unable to expose them. After hours of flight, Cloud had already crossed the eastern Xian region and reached the Martial Heaven Searing. Cloud's speed was truly amazing. Boom. Suddenly, the seawater exploded. A giant sea demon charged out, trying to bite Cloud. It was actually a shocking 12th rank sea demon. It had a pair of wings and suddenly flew out of the sea. This strange sea demon's mouth was exceptionally large and filled with sharp teeth. However, it had just flown out when Cloud opened its mouth, and a black light sword pierced through its head. It was killed in one blow. Cloud had refined the blue-eye peacock's essence blood, and her divine abilities only grew stronger, to the point where she could one-shot a 12th rank magical beast. Of course, sea demons were not magical beasts. Sea demons without any special bloodline only had average power. Compared to 12th rank magical beasts on the land, they were quite a bit weaker. Long Chen waved his hand, collecting the sea demon's corpse and tossing it into the black soil of the primal chaos space. The corpse was rapidly consumed, and life energy spread throughout the primal chaos space. The yin-yang immortal grass at the border between the black soil and the yellow soil finally showed some faint signs of recovery. Right now, for him to use the 7th form of Split the Heavens required using the power of the yin-yang immortal grass to bear the impact. The yin-yang immortal grass had helped him out immensely during the previous battle. It had withered in the last fight, and it only recovered the slightest bit from the corpse of a 12th rank sea demon. There was still quite a distance before it was fully recovered. Not good. We've been surrounded. Meng Qi's expression suddenly changed. What happened? Asked Long Chen. Perhaps you're right and someone did mark us. There are experts gathering from every direction. There's no way we can escape, said Meng Qi. If there was no mark on them, then there was no way they could so accurately track their position. There were over 20 Netherpassage experts that had formed an arc ahead of them, completely blocking their path. Wanting to avoid them, Meng Qi had then sensed over 10 powerful auras blocking them off at the rear. Every single one of their movements was clearly within the control of their opponents. Long Chen's guess was correct, but unfortunately, Meng Qi's power was limited, and she couldn't find just what mark had been placed on them. Mo Nian Zhiqiu, it's going to be hard on you. Help me stall them. Long Chen suddenly jumped into the sea. Upon jumping into the sea, he immediately saw a tiger wing white shark, a 10th rank sea demon. His spiritual strength stretched out, and he instantly took control of it. He made it swallow him and then swim into the distance. The tiger wing white shark was extremely quick in the water. It quickly shot through the water, and not a moment too soon. The seawater behind him suddenly trembled intensely, and a wall of runes sealed that space. Long Chen had managed to leave in time. Any later and he would have been trapped. Hurry, hurry. Long Chen urged the tiger wing white shark to swim at its highest speed. At the same time, he closed his eyes and tried to sense something. As he shot through the water, the feeling he was trying to sense grew stronger. Very quickly, he saw ripples appear in the water before him. A giant dragon scale was floating at the depths of the sea. The tiger-wing white shark didn't dare to get anywhere near that scale. It struggled, actually fighting against Long Chen's control. Its fear toward the dragon scale was making it break out of his control. Long Chen released the tiger-wing white shark, and it immediately fled for its life. Long Chen could only swim over with his own power. Once he got closer to the white scale, he felt its terror. This scale was like a sealed volcano. Once it erupted, it could destroy the world. Are you really planning on taking it? That's a true dragon's reverse scale. True dragons are supreme existences amongst the dragon race. Your chances of succeeding with your current power are less than 1/10, and if you fail, you will instantly be blown to bits, said Evil Moon. There's no other choice. You're sealed by the Sovereign Seal and can only use your power through me. Due to my cultivation base, you can't unleash your full power. To save my brothers, this is the only way. Long Chen looked at the dragon scale that was just floating there motionlessly. Without hesitation, he reached out to touch it. His clothes instantly blew apart, and an irresistible pressure crashed down on him. Cracks spread throughout his entire body, and he almost exploded. Long Chen, give up. This is just the first wave. There's no way you can succeed, shouted Evil Moon. No, I will succeed. There is no other way. Long Chen took a deep breath. With a glint of determination in his eyes, he placed his other hand on the dragon scale as well. Long Chen's flesh exploded. Other than his head, his entire body was nothing more than a skeleton. Long Chen. Evil Moon was shocked. This dragon scale was even more terrifying than it had expected. Based on this, Long Chen had no chance of subduing it. Right now, Long Chen was just trying to form a connection with the dragon scale. He hadn't even activated its will yet, but he was already on the verge of collapse. To subdue a true dragon's reverse scale required using your own will and fully releasing the true dragon's will. Forcing things like this was simply suicide. Break! Long Chen roared, and the dragon scale suddenly began to blaze with light. A sacred dragon pressure erupted. Cracks covered Long Chen's skeleton. It looked like he would explode at any moment. It's over. Long Chen's definitely dead. Evil Moon sighed. Just how was a soul transformation disciple supposed to endure this kind of power? As the dragon pressure grew stronger, the seafloor cracked and the world shuddered. Just what dragon did this scale come from? How can it be so terrifying? As the pressure grew greater, Evil Moon became increasingly shocked. Azure dragons were what adult true dragons were called. As for green dragons, they were babies. The difference between the two was like a heavenly chasm. The green dragon's reverse scale fell off naturally, but the Azure dragon reverse scale would only molt when the Azure dragon went through its tribulation and ascended to a higher level. This dragon scale contained the dragon's will to contend against the heavenly Daos. It wouldn't even submit to the heavenly Daos, so what could possibly make it submit? However, Long Chen refused to believe this reality, wanting to use his own will to suppress the Azure dragon's will. The current Long Chen had no idea what was happening around him. In his mental world, heaven and earth were crumbling. A giant Azure dragon coiled through collapsing space, while Long Chen was floating in the air, looking at it. He had to win. The Azure dragon in his mind let out a roar, and Long Chen's felt like his soul was about to shatter. He knew he was on the verge of death. Submit! Long Chen also roared. He wasn't aware of this, but at that moment, his skeleton had already shattered. He was left with just his head. Submit! 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 In Long Chen's mental realm, his roar resounded through the air. He was clashing with that supreme dragon might. As he roared, the stars in the sky of his mental world shook, as if each one was resonating with his words. Suddenly, the dragon in his mind vanished. Long Chen's head floated in front of the scale, his eyes closed. The dragon scale slowly floated toward Long Chen's head. Divine light flowed out of it, and the dragon scale actually began to crumble, with sand-like particles falling off of it and merged into Long Chen's head. His skeleton slowly grew back out. It's rebuilding his skeleton? Evil Moon let out a startled cry. The Azure Dragon reverse scale was the most precious part of the Azure Dragon. For Long Chen to be using it to rebuild his skeleton, he would truly be transformed afterward. Evil Moon didn't know what had happened. The Azure Dragon reverse scale was simply disintegrating and merging into Long Chen's body, rebuilding it. His new skeleton was white as jade and sparkled brightly. It possessed a terrifying pressure. When his skeleton was fully rebuilt, the final grain of the dragon scale was used up. However, as the dragon scale vanished, it was replaced with a fist-sized drop of blood. Azure Dragon Essence Blood. That scarlet drop of blood possessed a terrifying aura. It was like the energy within this single drop could destroy the entire world. The essence blood slowly merged into Long Chen's body. His skeleton became covered in tiny runes that looked like small dragons coiling around the bones. Flesh quickly grew out of his bones. Even his organs reappeared. In just a dozen breaths' time, his body had recovered and looked like it did before. However, there was a white dragon image in the middle of Long Chen's chest now. It was constantly coiling, and each time it spun around, Long Chen's blood chi would pulse. "Damn, he might be unstoppable now," muttered Evil Moon. Just as the Azure Dragon reverse scale completely rebuilt Long Chen's body, within the endless void, a giant eye slowly opened. That eye was larger than the surrounding stars. It looked through the cosmos, eyeing a small speck of dust in the great distance. "Too slow. At this rate, you'll be killed before you even grow up. That's not in line with a 9-star heir. Long Chen, come out and fight." Long Chen had just dived into the martial heaven searing when an angry roar rang out. That voice was very familiar. Suddenly, runes lit up throughout the sky and sea. Over 30 Netherpassage experts appeared, sealing the surrounding space. This time, they had formed 3 groups of over 10 people, each group forming their own formation and creating 3 layers. After their previous carelessness, they wouldn't allow Long Chen and the others to escape again. After being surrounded, a figure appeared in front of them, startling them. They all recognized this person. "Hua Liyun!" Startled cries rang out. This person was Hua Liyun, but he was surrounded by blazing flames, and his aura was completely different. "He actually broke through to the Life Star realm," exclaimed Ma Ruyun. The current Hua Liyun had a starry image on his forehead. He had not just broken through to Life Star, but his cultivation base had also stabilized at the first heaven stage. He was different from those Life Star Empyreans in the Yin-Yang world. Those Life Star Empyreans had just gone through their tribulations, and their power hadn't stabilized yet. Due to time constraints, they had joined the battle before their cultivation bases stabilized. They had been unable to fully unleash the power of the Life Star realm. But Hua Liyun had not just broken through, he had also managed to fully stabilize his cultivation base at the first heaven stage of Life Star. "Long Chen, come out and face your death," roared Hua Liyun. His mission in the Yin-Yang world had ended in complete failure. Over 2 million disciples had turned into 37 people managing to barely escape with their lives. That couldn't just be described as failure. It was a catastrophic defeat. They had almost been annihilated. He, true immortal Jiaoqi, and Xie Luo had even joined hands but had been unable to defeat Long Chen. That was a stain that he would never be able to wash away. Upon returning to the martial heaven continent, he had immediately chosen to go through his tribulation. He had already suppressed himself to the peak of the soul transformation realm for a long time, so he had long since possessed the ability to break through. If it hadn't been for the plan with the Yin-Yang world, he would have long since broken through. Hence, as soon as it was over, he chose to advance. Due to being suppressed at the peak for so long, he instantly broke through to the first heaven stage. After stabilizing his energy, he immediately charged over here. However, only after he roared did he find that while the entire Dragonblood Legion was here, Long Chen was gone. "What's going on?" demanded Hua Liyun. "We're not sure. We don't know when Long Chen left," said one of the elders wearing the Flame Divine Palace's robes. All of them had ugly expressions. Long Chen had actually vanished at some point. If they couldn't kill him, he would become their nightmare. Ma Ruyun sneered, "Fools, your goal was Long Chen? But after getting through the first blockade, Long Chen left. Did you think he was going to just let himself be blocked a second time? If Long Chen's run off, then we'll kill you first. There's nowhere for him to run anymore, so he'll be killed sooner or later, said Hualian. His flame spear appeared in his hand, blazing with unprecedented divine power. Tisich, it seems that Long Chen's beating from last time wasn't enough to cure your illness. Is bragging so satisfying? Tell me, even if we were to stick our necks out for you to cut off, would you dare? Ignoring whether or not you can even kill us, even if we die to you, as long as Long Chen lives, you'll never be able to rest in peace. I understand Long Chen. For a normal person, 10 years isn't too late for revenge. For Long Chen, 20 years of continuous revenge is just the start. It's the kind of vengeance that chills you to the bone. Compared to Long Chen, I'm much more noble. At the very least, I just dig up graves, but Long Chen will make sure you don't have corpses to bury. Perhaps the current Long Chen can't contend against you, but what about your talented disciples? They'll be slaughtered to the last. After killing those geniuses, he'll then come for your old heads. I've been friends with Long Chen for many years, and I understand him far too well. Thinking about the results, I'm even a bit excited, said Ma Ruyun while holding the 5-element sun-hunting bow. The Netherpassage experts couldn't help feeling a chill. Although Ma Ruyun's words were only to frighten them, they all knew just who Long Chen was. He was known for his ruthlessness. There was nothing that he didn't dare to do. From the eastern wasteland to the central plains, just how many geniuses had he slain? Just how many sects had he destroyed? Perhaps even Long Chen himself couldn't keep track of them. If the Dragonblood Legion was destroyed, there would be nothing holding him back. He would become a wild devil and a future calamity for their sections. You think you can scare us? As long as we capture you, Long Chen will send himself to us. Hualian smiled cruelly. What an idiot! Do you think the Dragonblood Legion's people will go willingly with you? You think we'll let you turn us into hostages? You think the Dragonblood warriors are as cowardly as you? Ma Ruyun almost sneered. Hualian, you're underestimating the Dragonblood Legion too much. Even if we have to kill ourselves, we won't let you capture us alive. In any case, our boss will avenge us. Your sects will all be destroyed, so what do we have to be afraid of? Added Guoran. In the face of death, all the Dragonblood warriors were still calm without the slightest fear in their eyes. That calm was hair-raising. The Dragonblood Legion was called the Martial Heaven Continent's #1 Legion, and their most frightening aspect was their unity. They were completely unafraid of death. These Netherpassage experts were finally bearing witness to their terror. Don't try to act tough. I don't believe there's anyone in this world really unafraid of dying, said Hualian disdainfully. There are many things that you don't believe in that are true, said Ma Ruyun. Taking out a strange object, he said, What about this? Do you believe me when I say that no matter what kind of heaven-encompassing net you've laid down, it won't be able to trap me, Ma Ruyun? The Earth-splitting divine shuttle. That object made these Netherpassage experts' expressions change. The Earth-splitting divine shuttle was a supreme life-saving treasure. It was famous on the continent now, and it was basically unstoppable. It was an extremely shameless divine item that would break through any formation they laid down. Even Netherpassage experts couldn't stop it. You want Long Chen, but you can't get him. As for me, if I want to leave, you can't stop me, said Ma Ruyun indifferently. Your Earth-splitting divine shuttle can only fit a maximum of 5 people. Once you leave, the others will all die. I don't believe you would give yourself such infamy. Although that was what Hualian said, his expression changed. The name of the Western wretch was not for nothing. Ma Ruyun spent his days digging up tombs, and despite how many people he had infuriated, despite how many times he had been surrounded, he was still living happily. It was all thanks to the Earth-splitting divine shuttle. Although he was infuriated, Hualian had no choice but to admit that if Ma Ruyun wanted to leave, no one could stop him. Tisi, you really are an idiot. If Long Chen has left, why would I have to stay? I'll just help him in his revenge in the future. I won't just foolishly die with everyone. In the future, Long Chen will be in charge of killing the living ones, while I'll be in charge of digging up the dead ones. Bringing out your ancestral coffins to bask in the sunlight will be nice too, don't you think? Said Nian. Naturally, corpses were meant to be buried beneath the ground. They weren't supposed to see the sunlight. The corpses could rot, decay, and even affect the family's karmic luck. In the past, although Nian had gone grave digging, he hadn't done something like that because that was too cruel. Nian wasn't quite daring enough to do it. He was also afraid of being struck by karma. However, if he was forced to do it, he would. If others played a shameless move, he would play 20. They would see just who was afraid of who. The surrounding experts' expressions darkened. As expected of a wretch. They wanted to kill him right here and now. Any sect or family with such an ancient inheritance would have their own ancestral heroic spirit guarding it. If their corpses were brought out, that would be a grave blow to any sect or family's karmic luck. As for Nian, he could rob whoever's tomb he wanted. The Western Xian region's ancient family alliance had already suffered immensely. If Nian and Long Chen were to join hands, they would never find any peace in this world. The Netherpassage experts were simply dumbfounded for a while. They had thought that victory was already in their grasp, but now? They couldn't kill them, and they couldn't capture them. They didn't know what to do. You might be able to con others, but you can't con me. I refuse to believe it. Even if you all die, we still have ways to force out Long Chen. As for Nian, we'll slaughter your Mo family to the last. Sneered Hualayan. He wouldn't be threatened because Pill Valley had its gods and didn't need the protection of its ancestral heroic spirits. He wasn't afraid of Nian's grave robbing. Not giving Nian a chance to speak, Hualayun's spear suddenly pierced toward Nian. Hold it, shouted Nian suddenly. What? Do you have any final words? Sneered Hualayan. Nian ignored his mocking, instead saying, how about we have a bet instead? Bet what? Asked Hualayan. You've advanced to the Life Star realm, while we're all at soul transformation. Let's have a challenge. We'll pick out 5 people from our side to fight you. If you win, we'll go peacefully. We won't resist, and you can use us as hostages. If you lose, I won't ask that you release us. I know that you don't have the authority to do that, so I won't make it hard on you. As long as you kneel down and call me daddy, that will be enough, said Nian. You're courting death. Hualayan was enraged by this naked slap in the face. He had already advanced to the Life Star realm, and he no longer viewed Nian and the others as a challenge. Is that supposed to be a yes or a no? Snorted Nian. If you have something to say, then say it. If you have a fart, then fart it. But wailing like a monkey is meaningless. Fine, I'll agree. Today, I'll beat you black and blue. Hualayun angrily swung his spear. A spear image shot toward Nian. Nian hastily blocked with the 5-element sun-hunting bow. With a bang, he was sent flying back, blood flowing from his mouth. He stared in shock at Hualayan. This was just a random blow from Hualayan, but it still wasn't something that Nian could block. Hualayun's manifestation appeared behind him, and 2 figures were present within it. Flame energy surged toward him. Let's see just who will be calling who daddy. Hualayan suddenly smashed his spear down along with the surrounding flame energy. This attack caused the void to boom, and even the Netherpassage experts were startled. Hualayun's manifestation shook. The 2 statues within it seemed to possess their own life now. His manifestation is just 1 step from being fully awakened. The Netherpassage experts let out startled cries. The current Hualayan was truly like a god of fire. There was one extremely strict requirement for fully awakening one's manifestation, and that was to at least have reached the Life Star realm. After breaking through, Hualayun's manifestation had increased in power, and the divine might coming out of it even affected these Netherpassage experts. Not good. This bastard's manifestation is completely crushing what heavenly Tao energy we can absorb, said Nian gravely. Now there wasn't just a cultivation-based difference. Even in terms of manifestation, they were completely crushed. One toad after another at the bottom of a well. In front of me, you're just ants. Just by myself, I can crush all of you. declared Hualayun. His flame spear exploded with light and pierced down toward them. Yijiqiu's ice sword unleashed a sky of ice and snow to block this fiery attack. However, the ice and snow instantly vanished in front of Hualayun's flames. Yijiqiu was then forced back 9 consecutive steps, her body covered in dense steam. Do you think this is still the yin-yang world? My flame domain can melt all things. Your ice domain can't bear a single blow from me, shouted Hualayun. The 2 statues behind him suddenly formed hand seals, and flame energy enveloped this space. Yu Zifeng suddenly attacked. There was no pressure from his attack, but his sword chi contained the will of the sword. It tore through the sky, even splitting Hualayun's flame domain. Oh! Hualayun was startled. He hadn't thought that anyone's attack would be able to break his manifestation. He raised his spear. Boom! The sword chi shattered, but a line of blood flowed out of the corner of Hualayun's mouth. He was actually injured. Die! Hualayun was startled and infuriated. Yu Zifeng's attack was too bizarre and was actually able to ignore the power of his domain. With a howl, a giant spear image shot toward Yu Zifeng. A giant arrow smashed into the spear image. However, it exploded upon contact, and the spear image didn't even slow down. What? Ma Ruyun was shocked. His full-strength attack was actually unable to shake Hualayun's attack. The difference was too great. Hualayun's anger had provoked him into using his full power. Everyone watch out. Hualayun's manifestation has greatly reduced the effect of our manifestations. We don't even have 70% of our normal attack power. Meng Qi sent a hasty spiritual message to everyone. Hualayun's attack was about to strike Yu Zifeng, and considering that Yu Zifeng's defense was weak, there was no way that he could receive it. A black light sword shot out as Cloud tried to receive the attack. At the same time, willow branches appeared in front of Yu Zifeng, forming a giant shield. Boom! Cloud's attack crumbled, and Ma Ruyun's shield exploded. Yu Zifeng slashed his sword, and after going through Ma Ruyun, Cloud, Ma Ruyun, and Yu Zifeng's attacks, Hualayun's attack finally exploded. However, Yu Zifeng also coughed up blood from the impact, which made the Dragon Blood Warrior's heart sink. If others were injured, they could use Heavenly Dao energy to heal. But Yu Zifeng wasn't an Empyrean or a Celestial and couldn't heal. Being injured could be fatal for him. A group of trash. Come at me together, and I'll show you that the world's #1 legion is just a rabble of ants. Hualayun attacked once more. All the surrounding flame energy was absorbed in an instant by this attack. In the face of this terrifying attack, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wana, Gu Yang, and the others were all forced to take action, but they were all sent flying. Do you see? This is the power of a life star expert, world energy that controls the heavenly Daos. Do you know the difference between us now? Hualayun laughed mockingly. Bastard, if I also advanced to life star, I'd kill you with a fart, cursed Ma Ruyun as he flew back, but he also coughed up a mouthful of blood. Suddenly, all the Dragon Blood Warriors began to shine. They summoned their Dragon Blood battle armor, and Guoran roared. Dragon Blood cross-slash. However, this terrifying attack containing all their power was shattered by a single swing of Hualayun's spear. All the Dragon Blood Warriors turned pale as paper. Some of them were even tottering on the verge of collapse. All their energy was actually unable to contend with Hualayun. Suddenly, one spear image after another shot out at Ma Ruyun, Yu Zifeng, and the others, once more sending them flying. Heavenly Dragon Flame Net. Hualayun raised a hand, and a net made of weaving flames captured Yijiqiu, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wan. As long as I capture Long Chen's women, I'm not worried about him showing himself. If he doesn't show himself, I don't mind sending him a few green hats. Hualayun had actually condensed the surrounding flame energy into a giant net. He pulled it toward him. The 4 of them struggled, but it was useless. Yijiqiu was surrounded by steam as she summoned her ice energy, but she was completely suppressed. Bastard, release my sisters! Ma Ruyun and the Dragon Blood Warriors roared, but their attacks landed on a giant flame wall that forced them back. Suddenly, sword light appeared, creating an opening in the barrier. The blood-stained Yu Zifeng was flying back, his expression icy. Of them all, only Yu Zifeng wasn't suppressed by Huolieyun's manifestation, and he was the only one who could possibly threaten him. Regretfully, he was still too weak. I didn't expect Long Chen to have such a loyal dog. Alright, then I'll use your blood as a challenge to Long Chen. Huolieyun pulled the net with one hand, while he threw his flame spear with his other hand. A trail of flame runes followed the flame spear as it flew through the air, igniting the space it passed. Let alone a physical body, even a star could be pierced by this spear. Zifeng. Everyone let our heart-rending roars. If this attack struck, Yu Zifeng would definitely die. However, the rapidly flying flame spear suddenly stopped in midair, and the Netherpassage experts guarding this region jumped in shock. Their barrier had actually been broken by somebody. Flames exploded and space twisted. The flame spear was actually unable to advance any further because a large hand had caught its tip. A blood-soaked figure appeared in front of everyone's eyes. That figure looked like a devil god that had crawled out of hell. Boss! The Dragon Blood warriors cheered. Although the flames blocked their vision, they could sense that familiar aura. Long Chen. Those Netherpassage experts were dumbfounded. Long Chen had actually returned, charging through their barrier. Long Chen's hand tightly gripped the spear. It trembled intensely, erupting with flames, seeming to try to escape his grasp. However, it couldn't. Although Long Chen's body looked like it was covered in blood, in truth, that blood wasn't flowing outside his body. Instead, it was flowing within. His blood was flowing through him like tiny dragons swimming. The power of his blood qi caused the void to rumble. "What terrifying essence blood!" exclaimed one of the Netherpassage experts. He was from the Xian beasts, and Long Chen's current blood qi terrified him. He couldn't help but tremble and have an urge to flee for his life. As Long Chen's blood flowed within his body, his skin was constantly being torn apart and healing. It was a frightening sight, but it was like his blood qi would explode at any moment and destroy the world. The Azure Dragon Essence blood had rebuilt his body, but it still needed to fully merge with his blood. However, Long Chen couldn't wait any longer, and he had rushed over immediately. Because his body hadn't fully merged with the dragon blood before moving, it was tearing his body apart. Long Chen's arrival also shocked Huolieyun. What was more shocking though was that his divine item was actually completely terrified and wanting him to save it. Suddenly, Long Chen's other hand reached out and grabbed the spear. Then, shockingly, he slammed the spear across his knee. Flames exploded, and a mournful wail resounded through heaven and earth. That terrifying blood-colored spear was actually forcibly broken by Long Chen. Huolieyun suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. As the spear's item spirit was linked to his soul, the spear's destruction caused a backlash. Affected by this backlash, the flame net that he had condensed dissipated. Yi Zhiqiu, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wan regained their freedom. Yi Zhiqiu's sword flashed as she prepared an attack. "Let me do it." Long Chen's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Huolieyun, raising a hand and launching a slap. Long Chen broke a powerful divine item with his bare hands as soon as he arrived, shocking everyone. Huolieyun's head was still reeling from the backlash when Long Chen's hands slapped him across the face. Huolieyun's head distorted, his bones breaking and his face caving in. The current Long Chen had yet to summon his divine ring, nor was he using the dragon blood battle armor. This was just the power of his physical body. The reason he didn't have them out was because he currently couldn't. His body hadn't fully recovered, and using his full power would cause his body to tear itself apart. The life energy in the primal chaos space had been used up, so there was no way that they could heal his injuries. Long Chen's physical body had reached a level that even he couldn't imagine. The Azure Dragon Essence blood was flowing within his body, constantly strengthening it. But as his power grew, his flesh tore apart and healed, tore apart and healed. Even though his body hadn't fully recovered, he felt that with his current strength, he could tear apart heaven and earth with his bare hands. This single slap almost killed Huolieyun. Nian and the others were staring in shock at Long Chen. His power was ferocious. Heavenly diagram suppresses the cosmos. Huoyeyun's manifestation activated, instantly healing his injuries. He let out a shout and a giant divine diagram appeared, so high that it broke through the clouds yet still tore through the sea. It was the Brahma divine diagram. The two statues in Huoyeyun's manifestation began to chant. As a result, a ray of light shot out of the Brahma divine diagram at Long Chen. "Be suppressed," roared Huoyeyun. His divine spear was broken, making his heart drip blood. That spear had accompanied him for a long time and had been nourished by his soul. He had spent a huge amount of time and effort on it. It was a divine item with great potential but had now been broken by Long Chen. As for the Brahma divine diagram, although it was even more terrifying, it would always belong to Pill Valley, not him. Evil Moon appeared in Long Chen's hands. Its two dragon marks lit up, and a dragon's cry resounded through the air. An evil murderous aura shot out. "Hee, I can finally fight on a higher level." Evil Moon laughed delightedly. Before, in the yin-yang world, when Evil Moon had loaned a portion of its energy to Long Chen, it had caused his scales to turn black. That was because Long Chen's own physical body was too weak, making their cooperation difficult. If Evil Moon had gone all out, Long Chen would have been unable to hold out before he could even attack his enemy. However, now that the Azure Dragon reverse scale had reforged Long Chen's body, Evil Moon could finally go all out. A black saber image tore into the sky. Behind that saber image was a giant black dragon. As that dragon roared, the saber image grew explosively. It absorbed the dragon image into it before it slashed toward the Brahma divine diagram. Boom! The black saber image sliced apart the Brahma divine diagram's attack. It also caused the surrounding space to crumble, and giant ripples spread in every direction. The clash between Evil Moon and the Brahma divine diagram made the barriers sealing this space explode. Those Netherpassage experts' expressions completely changed, and they hastily switched to blocking these shockwaves. Huge waves soared out of the sea. The water surged into the sky like it wished to devour the heavens. Impossible! How can he be so powerful? Huoyeyun hacked up blood. He had already advanced to the Life Star realm and was in control of world energy. He could inject his world energy into the Brahma divine diagram, and it would allow him to unleash 10 times the power. However, he was still unable to defeat Long Chen. Long Chen was also sent flying by the impact. The flesh of his arms became a mangled mess, however, his expression didn't change. Even as he flew back, he once more slashed his saber. As long as Long Chen's physical body was strong enough, Evil Moon could unleash its full power in its sealed state. After absorbing the metal-devouring Evil Dragon's marrow and core, Evil Moon had plenty of energy. A giant saber image flew toward the retreating Huoyeyun. The Brahma divine diagram automatically went to protect its master, appearing in front of him. However, without Huoyeyun's own energy, it was sent flying. The shockwaves of that clash caused Huoyeyun to cough up more blood, and he tumbled back. Just at this moment, a third saber image came crashing toward him. It had only been a few seconds from the first attack, and even those Netherpassage experts' expressions changed. Just how was it possible to unleash such ferocious attacks without accumulating any energy? That made no sense. "Quick, save him!" The Netherpassage experts charged out, but they were one step too late. Huoyeyun's body was spinning through the air as the saber image crashed toward him. A dozen attacks were unleashed at the same time, but it was too late. They couldn't block Long Chen's attack in time. Huoyeyun was struck head-on by the saber image and instantly exploded. However, as his physical body exploded, divine runes lit up within him. It was like a bright star within him was holding a fist-sized miniature version of him. It was his Yuan spirit which fled. "Long Chen, how dare you destroy my physical body? I'll slaughter your whole family, your whole sect," roared Huoyeyun's Yuan spirit as he fled. The destruction of a physical body was not a minor inconvenience. It was half crippling his cultivation base. Even if he found a better physical body to possess, it wouldn't perfectly match his soul. Long Chen snorted and chased after Huoyeyun's Yuan spirit. However, Evil Moon said, "Don't chase him. Your physical body was just born and is like a baby." Any more and you'll harm your foundation. One more attack and then run. Only then did Long Chen notice that large pieces of his flesh crumbled like tofu. His current appearance was extremely frightening. That was the backlash of his attacks. Taking advantage of while the Netherpassage experts were still shocked, Long Chen raised Evil Moon. Split the heavens 7. A giant saber image tore through the sky, slashing down like a river of stars. It fell in Huolieyan's direction. That's the wrong direction. Evil Moon roared. It wanted Long Chen to create an opening to run, but he actually attacked Huolieyan. Yes, you're right. Don't worry and just support me. The saber image crashed down, causing the Netherpassage experts' expressions to change. If this attack struck Huolieyan's Yuan spirit, he would definitely die. Everyone, block it. One of the experts wearing Pill Valley's robes shouted. If Huolieyan died here, that would be a major impact on them. He was the future leader of the Flame Divine Palace. He couldn't be lost. All the Netherpassage experts attacked at the same time, their divine items unleashing rays of light. As a result, a giant net of interweaving attacks appeared in front of Huolieyan. Boom! The saber image collided with their attacks, causing a powerful explosion. Astral winds devoured the sky. It was impossible to see anything. They ran. Huolieyan had been saved. Thanks to their blockade, Huolieyan's Yuan spirit had managed to flee into the Brahma divine diagram, and now there was no way that Long Chen could injure him. Just as they relaxed, they realized that Long Chen and the others had vanished. Don't worry, they won't be able to escape. Hurry and report that they got away from us. That expert from Pill Valley snorted, clearly not very worried. Long Chen, just wait, I won't let you have an easy death, roared Huolieyan. He felt like if he didn't roar to vent, he would explode. Long Chen, are you all right? As clouds sped away, Chu Yao and Ma Ruyun both had a hand on Long Chen's back, unleashing their life energy to heal him. The current Long Chen didn't have that much flesh left on his body, and there were many places where his bones were sticking out. His frightening appearance distressed his women. Tang Wan in particular was crying. Don't waste the effort. Long Chen took a deep breath. Chu Yao, Meng Qi, and the others instantly turned pale with fear. Hey, don't look at me like that. I won't die. I just meant that your life energy isn't doing much, so it's fine, said Long Chen hastily. Scoundrel, are you trying to scare us to death? Raged Tang Wan. She wanted to beat him, but he was covered in wounds, so where was she supposed to hit? Just now, his words had almost made their souls flee from their bodies. Long Chen, you're really a badass. You even managed to beat Huolieyan. All right, I now no longer feel so jealous of your multiple wives and concubines, praised Nian. The first part of his words was normal, but the latter was off. Just who were the wives and who were the concubines? Long Chen glared at him. Nian was definitely trying to con him. Long Chen, what do we do now? Where do we run? Asked Meng Qi. It wouldn't matter where we go. Cloud, Chu Yao, Ruyun, Gu Yang, Li Qi Mingyuan, you've all been marked. No matter where we go, we won't be able to escape. Long Chen shook his head. Everyone's expressions changed, especially the people he listed. They didn't even know when someone had marked them. Don't worry, once I recover a bit, I'll use the power of the dragon blood to erase that spiritual mark. Long Chen took a deep breath, a slightly relaxed expression finally appearing on his face. Bang! A beautiful white jade table was smashed to bits by the unfettered All-Seer. That table had originally had a carving of the Martial Heaven continent on it. There had been a small light spot constantly moving over the Martial Heaven searing, but just then, that light spot had suddenly vanished. How could this happen? Roared the unfettered All-Seer. He had long since lost the air of a transcendent immortal. His gaze was as sharp as a blade. There were dozens of Netherpassage experts gathered in this room, and they had been sitting around the table. At this moment, the room was deathly silent. Now isn't the time to get angry. Alert our people who are near the place where Long Chen vanished, and have everyone gather there, said Pill Valley's master, Yu Xiaoyun, who was equally gloomy. It's useless. They have the cloud chasing heaven swallowing sparrow. they'll just run. The unfettered all-seer took a deep breath and sighed. Still, sometimes luck is also a kind of power. If Long Chen's luck runs out, perhaps he'll end up running into our people, said Yu Xiaoyun. Although he also knew that this was just a way of comforting themselves and the chances were infinitely close to zero, at this point, even the slightest chance was worth striving for. Yu Xiaoyun announced, everyone can scatter. Although Long Chen got away this time, there's no need to fear. His weakness is clear. Such a person can fall for countless schemes and isn't worth fearing. He only managed to get away thanks to his luck, but he's been expelled from the Martial Heaven Alliance, so we have countless ways to kill him. Don't be dejected. Pill Valley's promise to you all will be fulfilled, so don't worry. These people came from the various large powers. People like Di Long, Xie Wenian, Zhong Ziyang, Long and Juansong had left, leaving behind only a portion of their people to stay here to listen to Yu Xiaoyun's orders. Those experts now rose and said their goodbyes. Once they left, the ones from Pill Valley also retreated, leaving behind only Yu Xiaoyun and the unfettered all-seer. What ghost decided to screw us? The Martial Heaven Alliance's karmic luck has clearly reached its end, and Long Chen is clearly the evil star of the Martial Heaven Alliance's destruction. An easy win actually turned into such a state. The unfettered all-seer clenched his teeth, his expression ashen. Perhaps the Martial Heaven Alliance still has a little bit of power left. But that's fine too. Although we took some losses this time, in terms of the big picture, we're still the winner. The Martial Heaven Alliance's destruction is essentially set in stone. Although they still have some sects supporting them and there are signs of resurgence, it's just the final burst of light from the setting sun. It doesn't change that they're on their last legs. Right now, the most important thing is still eliminating Long Chen. He's too strange. Even your Heavenly Fate Island is unable to directly calculate anything about him. He makes me uneasy, said Yu Xiaoyun. He truly is strange. There are only a few existences outside the lines of fate. However, he isn't a good match for any of them, so it's impossible to tell just what kind of existence he is. Now even the 4 Fate Princes and the Vice Island Master have died to his hands. We've lost all our face and taken heavy losses, sighed the unfettered all-seer. Yu Xiaoyun looked at him with a faint smile. There's no need to play this game between us. I know that your 4 Fate Princes were just deputies. The true Fate Princes are still in seclusion in your immortal caves. I would even hazard a guess that their cultivation bases have already broken through to the Life Star realm. Being exposed, the unfettered all-seer awkwardly smiled. This was one of Heavenly Fate Island's greatest secrets. He hadn't expected Yu Xiaoyun to have such knowledge. Each of the true Fate Princes had a deputy Fate Prince. This was a strange custom of Heavenly Fate Island. If the true Fate Prince became the Island Master, then their deputy would also become the Island Master. In fact, the deputy would have even greater authority. That was because the true Fate Princes and true Island Master essentially never revealed themselves to the continent. They usually didn't step a foot out of Heavenly Fate Island for their whole lives. They were completely dedicated to researching the secrets of the heavens, and they were the true core of Heavenly Fate Island. As for the deputies, other than having to be greatly skilled in the cultivation techniques of Heavenly Fate Island, they also had to handle the business that Heavenly Fate Island had with the outside world. That was so that the true Fate Princes could focus on their cultivation, while the deputies were in charge of maintaining appearances. Of course, the death of the 4 deputy Fate Princes was still a loss of 4 peak geniuses. It was also a kind of humiliation for Heavenly Fate Island. Be at ease. Our actions are all at the directions of the gods. When their divine blessing descends, your Heavenly Fate Island will definitely enjoy a greater share, promised Yu Xiaoyun. The unfettered all-seer cupped his fists to express his thanks. The two of them discussed their plans for a couple more hours before the unfettered all-seer left. Once he was gone, Yu Xiaoyun waved his hand, and an image appeared on one of the walls. In the image, there was a woman kneeling devoutly toward 2 statues. Those 2 were the gods that Pill Valley worshipped, Lord Brahma and fallen Dainate. The 2 statues were standing there. Divine light flowed out of their heads and immersed the woman kneeling before them. Bathed in that holy light, She was noble and majestic. Yu Xiaoyun smiled as he looked at this woman. She was his daughter, Pill Valley's Pill Fairy, Yu Qingxian. The current Yu Qingxian was in a strange state. She was bathed in divine light, and divine flames were converging around her. This state was what Pill Valley called being immersed in the divine blessing. Yu Qingxian was currently receiving the god's blessing. Qingxian. What will matter in the future isn't talent. Only a god's inheritance can allow someone to rise above others in a great era. Don't disappoint your father. Yu Xiaoyun muttered to himself as he stared at the Pill Fairy. I heard that the girl from the Bloodkill Hall has also started receiving their divine blessing. But I believe you won't lose out to her. The future will belong to you divine sons and divine daughters. As for Longchen, he's nothing more than an oddity. So what if we let him bounce around for a few more days? Yu Xiaoyun shook his head disdainfully when he spoke of Longchen. Although Longchen had escaped this time, so what? Yu Xiaoyun had already achieved his goal. The Martial Heaven Alliance was fractured, and Chu Jianying had submitted to Pill Valley's threat, expelling Longchen. Their morale would plummet. Moreover, there were plenty of agents planted within as well. Their foundation would grow more and more unsteady. Chu Jianying's expulsion of Longchen had caused great dissatisfaction with the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples. It was the final seed for the next division of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Although Longchen hadn't died and they had lost their battle in the Yin-Yang world, they were still the ultimate winners. Valley Master, Huolian has returned. One of the elders of Pill Valley walked in. I know what happened. Bring him to the Flame Devil Palace, said Yu Xiaoyun. The Flame Devil Palace? Valley Master, The elder jumped in shock, thinking that he had misheard. Go. Having lost his physical body, Huolian no longer has much value. Even if he does manage to advance to Netherpassage in the future, he'll be stuck at the second step. Such a figure isn't worth raising. Going to the Flame Devil Palace is his only choice. Either he dies, or he manages to condense the Flame Devil body, gaining a Flame Spirit body. If he fails, then living would be a waste of resources anyway, said Yu Xiaoyun. That elder was stunned. The Flame Devil Palace was a pool of terrifying flame devils, and it was used to punish traitors. If Pill Valley's experts betrayed them or broke harsh rules, they would be tossed into the Flame Devil Palace to be burned alive. Those people would die, and their souls would be absorbed by the Flame Devils, becoming their nourishment. The Flame Devils came from another world. They were violent, cruel, and bloodthirsty. They even slaughtered members of their own race. The stronger Flame Devils in the Flame Devil Palace were comparable to Netherpassage experts. To make Huolian go there, his chances of survival were abysmal. Once he was inside, there were only two possibilities. He would either be devoured by one of the Flame Devils, or he would be the one devouring the Flame Devils. If he could succeed in doing so, he could possess a Flame Devil body, which would give him a Flame Spirit body. There had been people like Huolian who had lost their physical bodies and wanted to condense the Flame Devil body. But in all of Pill Valley's history, those people had died. The elder had no choice but to leave upon receiving his orders. Yu Xiaoyun once more turned back to the Pill Fairy who was bathed in divine light. A look of great anticipation and expectations appeared on his face. Haha, we finally managed to escape. Fuck, those bastards are really insidious. We didn't even know when they marked us. Gu Yang and the others all felt much more relaxed after Longchen unleashed the pressure of his dragon blood on them. They hadn't sensed anything before, but after this cleansing, they suddenly felt much more relaxed. Now, they became certain that someone had marked them. Longchen was silent for a moment before saying, "It was mostly done while you were fighting those peak experts. Nian and I were protected by divine light or powerful flames when fighting, so whatever they used, it wasn't able to stick to us. This mark is very strange. It actually sunk into your blood without you noticing. Even Meng Qi was unable to sense it. These bastards, they really come at us with one scheme after another. There's no beating them. They've already made their move for the future right as the battle begins." Guoran cursed. Their enemies were too sinister, with many backup plans. They had almost been killed because of this mark. After erasing the mark, Long Chen had clouds slow down a bit. After a couple more hours, since there was no more ambush, it meant that they were safe. Suddenly, Ma Ruyun stood up and announced, "Since everyone is safe, it's time for us to part ways. I'm very grateful to all of you for getting me more enemies. I'll be able to conduct even more archaeology in the future. Being able to take revenge while researching archaeology is like hitting two birds with one stone. I'll probably be very busy. Brothers, if you ever need work, come find me. Especially Brother Guaran and Brother Xiaochen. Listen to your big brother, you can achieve huge things. Don't let hesitation bury your talent. Good steel must be used on the edge of a blade. Following Long Chen is definitely a waste of your talents. Remember, if you want wealth and happiness, come dig up an ancient tomb with me, and just one will be enough to make you rich. A small tomb will be enough to support a family, a big tomb will be enough to create a nation. Scram. Stop trying to steal my people," raged Long Chen. "All right, I won't waste time arguing with a petty little man who can't even handle a life and death brother asking for some helpers." Long Chen, just wait, I'm going to do something so huge that will make you die of envy, ha. Ma Ruyun summoned the earth-splitting divine shuttle and instantly vanished from sight. Ma Ruyun left. Following that, Yijiqiu said, "Long Chen, it's also time for me to go." Long Chen was startled by that. Tang Wana cried out, "Big sister, you can't go. We still haven't had a chance to talk. I entered the yin-yang world under my master's orders to search for the heavenly ice crystal. It's one of the requirements for me to advance to life star flawlessly and awaken my manifestation. I've found the heavenly ice crystal, so I have to return and prepare to break through. I don't want to go either, but you've also seen how powerful Hualayun was after advancing to life star. We are parting now so that we can stay together in the future. The Divine Ice Palace is a land of bitter cold, and it's not a good place for non-ice cultivators, or I'd invite you to come," said Yijiqiu helplessly. "Can you really stay with us in the future? The Divine Ice Palace has agreed to it?" asked Tangwana. "Yes, my master has promised me that as long as I advance to Life Star and awaken the Ice Divine Sword, she won't restrict my freedom." Only then did Meng Qi and the others relax. Meng Qi cast a glance at Chu Yao and Tangwana. The three of them backed up a bit to leave some space for Long Chen and Yijiqiu to talk alone. "We've just reunited, only to part again." Long Chen bitterly smiled. From the moment Yijiqiu had arrived, all throughout the bloody battles they had gone through, they hadn't said more than 10 lines to each other, but now they had to part. He was very unwilling to leave things like this. "It's fine, we won't be apart for long this time. We'll be reuniting soon," said Yijiqiu. Yijiqiu normally had an icy tone to all her words, but now there was a touch of warmth. She took the initiative to hold Long Chen's hand. However, the instant she held his hand, she released it. Frost had covered Long Chen's hand in an instant. "Sorry, my ice spirit body hasn't fully awoken, and I still don't have complete control over my energy," apologized Yijiqiu. Long Chen flexed his fingers. He smiled. "The ice spirit body really is amazing. I look forward to when you've fully awakened it." On one hand, he looked forward to seeing her so powerful, while another reason was that he hoped that she could control her energy. Otherwise, it would be a pain to be turned into an ice crystal every time they touched. Not sensing any petty thoughts from Long Chen, Yijiqiu spread her arms and gave him a short hug. However, Long Chen was covered in frost after that. Even his hair had turned white. That appearance was startling and funny. Long Chen bitterly smiled and circulated his flame energy, restoring his appearance. Hopefully, in the future, they wouldn't feel a conflict between their flame energy and ice energy. "Goodbye. Take care." Yijiqiu said goodbye to everyone. She didn't want to go, but she had to. Ma Ruyun and Yijiqiu were both gone, and Cloud flew through the air with the Dragonblood Legion on her back. They used this time to start recovering. They hadn't had time to heal ever since that battle in the yin-yang world. They hadn't just used up all their energy, but their nerves had also been on their highest alert all this time. Now that the crisis had passed, they felt lightheaded. Some of the healers fainted. The dragon blood cross slash at the end had sucked away all of their energy as well to increase its power. Everyone began to recover, while Long Chen also sat down and closed his eyes. He didn't need to recover his spiritual yuan because his physical body was still in the midst of strengthening. When his body had first been restored by the dragon scale, that had just been the start. His flesh and his bones were still tender, and it wasn't a good time for him to be fighting. Having forced himself to fight, he had caused his body to crumble. Now his body had to heal by itself, and even the life energy of the primal chaos space wasn't able to help. He could only use the energy of the dragon blood to heal. Even once his body looked healed, he found that it was still being torn apart and healed over and over again. Long Chen asked Evil Moon what was going on, and Evil Moon said that the Azure Dragon's essence blood was just that powerful. His current physical body was unable to handle its power, so the dragon blood was constantly tempering his body. It would only stop once his physical body was strong enough to handle the Azure Dragon essence blood. Evil Moon, you're from the dragon race. With your years of wisdom and experience, you should know the origin of that dragon scale, right? Asked Long Chen. Fuck, have you gotten into a habit of conning people? Even when you talk, you have to be a conner. If I can't answer, you'll be cursing me for being ignorant and living all my years for nothing. Raged Evil Moon. Definitely not. I am humbly asking for your wisdom. When did you get so sensitive? Are you a woman? Long Chen was speechless. He had just been trying to praise Evil Moon. Do you believe me when I say I'll tell Meng Qi and the others about what you just said? Threatened Evil Moon sinisterly. No way. When did you become so shameless? After being with a shameless person like you for so long, I feel like I'm growing further and further apart from the Grand Dragon race. If this continues, I won't have any integrity left. Evil Moon sighed deeply. It's fine though, you were chosen by a descendant of the true dragons. Being infected a bit by you is something I can handle. I'll tell you this. Whether it's your cultivation base or your power level, you are completely unqualified to subdue that dragon scale. Rather than saying you subdued it, it would be more accurate to say that the Azure Dragon reverse scale chose you. What are you talking about? What am I talking about? And I thought you were smart. Could it be that you didn't notice it? In the end, the scale clearly let you off, or you would have died 1,000 times over. As for why it would do that, I don't know, so don't ask me. If you really want an explanation, then here. It's all thanks to your dog's hit luck, said Evil Moon. In truth, it really was unable to explain how this had happened. Long Chen should have died. Long Chen suddenly recalled that at the final moment when he had subdued the dragon scale, he felt like he had vaguely heard some kind of sigh. At that time, he had thought that he was imagining things. But now that Evil Moon said this, he didn't think he had imagined it. However, this kind of thing wasn't something that could be figured out just by thinking about it, so he gave up. He calmly sensed the changes in his body. It was still growing stronger. His physical body was already 10 times stronger than before he had subdued the dragon scale, yet it was continuing to strengthen. According to Evil Moon, the Azure Dragon essence blood wanted to strengthen his body to the point that it matched the strength of the blood. Thinking of that, Long Chen felt some fear. He had been too arrogant this time. Evil Moon had been right. If the Azure Dragon reverse scale hadn't chosen him, then no number of lives would have been enough. However, there were no absolute rights or wrongs either. If he hadn't done something like this, possessing the courage to challenge a supreme existence, the Azure Dragon reverse scale might not have chosen him. Long Chen shook his head. If he couldn't figure it out, then he shouldn't waste time thinking about it. To Evil Moon, he said, I wanted to kill Hua Liyun, but you didn't let me. Why not? If I had taken out the heaven-flipping seal, I would have had a 50% chance of killing him, and then I still would have been able to escape. That was one point that Long Chen had been confused on. It had been a great chance, but it had been wasted. He was a bit irritated. Leave it. When you attacked, you were unable to shake Hua Liyun's golden fate lines. There was no way you would have killed him. Do you not even know about your own luck? Snorted Evil Moon. Golden fate lines? Long Chen was startled. The Eastern Wasteland Bell had also said such a term in the immemorial path. The favorites of heaven and earth were looked after by the heavens and blessed with great luck. If two people were to fight with around the same power level, they had to be able to rattle the other side's golden fates lines if they wanted any chance to kill the other. If their golden fate lines didn't budge, then there was no chance of killing them. Some kind of unexpected external power would always appear. In that kind of situation, even if you had taken out the heaven flipping seal, it would have been useless. The heaven flipping seal has to manifest its true body to unleash its full power, but because its true body is so huge, those Netherpassage experts would have an easier time blocking it. Even if the Netherpassage experts didn't block it, the Brahma Divine diagram would have. Your attack only posed the slightest danger to Hualayan. You wouldn't have killed him, and you would have wasted the heaven flipping seal's energy. The more energy it can store up, the greater its intelligence will grow, and the greater control it will have. You shouldn't use it unless you have no choice, or each time it attacks, it will have to restart. Letting it first have more energy is better. The heaven-flipping seal is stronger than you imagine, warned Evil Moon. Long Chen's heart shook. It seemed he had underestimated the heaven-flipping seal. Its origins were not ordinary, or Evil Moon wouldn't give it such an appraisal. A day and night passed. Quite a few people had recovered to 50%, and they were much more relaxed. "Boss, do we have no home to return to?" asked Guaran. Long Chen scolded, "What nonsense are you talking about? As long as our brothers and sisters are present, wherever we go is home. Furthermore, being expelled this time is something that I discussed with the Shen Master. This is the only way for us to leave without misgivings. Fuck, now that we have this freedom, your boss is going to go big with you." Hearing this, Guaran and the others' eyes lit up. They understood Long Chen far too well. There would be some big movements happening soon. However, before this, I'll bring you to a good place. Long Chen smiled. He gave Cloud a location and they began rushing away. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.